G'day, folks. It is the coach here bringing you faction-focused, Nagash's hottest new army. It is the Ossiarch Bonereapers, aka the Bone Daddies. I'm going to see how many times I say Bone Daddies in this stream, but hopefully I do them justice. We are going to talk all things. If you haven't seen Faction Focus before, this is a helicopter and deep dive overview of the faction. We're going to talk about who the army is, what are they good at, how do you build a list around it, and then obviously optimize that force on the tabletop. With me, I have two amazing generals, people who have served and sworn their allegiance to Nagash. First off, the man who needs no introductions. You've probably seen him on the channel before. It is Shadowhammer Liam. How are you? And did you know this is not a Sylvaneth stream?
I had to double check, actually. I'm like, we're not talking about trees, right? Like, we had to talk about undead, not about life. So, yeah, it's complete opposite side because my other armies are all about life and joy. This one's about death and destruction. So,
and you are known about bringing joy to the realms.
100%. I am joyful as all hell. So, yeah, I did have to double check. I am doing this is not a Sylvaneth show, so I double checked that before I came in. So, yeah. Super keen to be here. Super keen to talk about my new love, my new true love.
And we brought you here not by accident, not because I'm desperate, but you are a Bonereapers player. You have now put the trees into the wood pile, and you've taken on the Death faction. And being a competitive Masters level player, I know you've cracked this book and you've built out some cheese. So looking forward to hearing more about what you've built.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say from an introduction in the odd chance that someone doesn't know who you are?
No, I'm just competitive and I enjoy samurai looking models. So that's all you need to know, really. And this army sold me in a heartbeat. So yeah.
Welcome to the stream. And another man who has sworn his allegiance to Nagash, someone who's a little bit more loyal than others. It is the mayor of Dubbo himself, Matt Tyrrell. How are you, sir?
Good man, good man. How are you?
Really well, thank you. Matt has been playing Death ever since I've known him, which is a number of years. Previously, we've been running around with Allegiance of Nagash, have been doing very, very, very successfully over there. And you've come over to the Bone Daddies.
Yes. I'm sort of trying to get in before the book ends up being filth. I want to have a few games, and that's probably one of the reasons I never played much FEC. I had the army there. I've still got all in models ready to build. Being a mad Death fan, I love all things Death, but I just never brought myself to playing FEC just because of the stigma that goes along with it. So hopefully I can get a couple of games in with these guys before they have their own stigma attached to them.
Well, we're going to find out what stigma and what amazing crack that this book has, and we've got the Australian Masters coming up in about 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks, and Matt is actually taking them to the Masters, which is the best of Australia. So, if Matt is picking up this book and taking it, we know he has built some really strong lists, and we know he's practiced this a lot. So, I think between Liam and Matt, we're going to have a very constructive view of this book. For the purpose and for the people who haven't seen this before, we are going to focus a bit more on a competitive point of view. Certainly, if you are coming at this book from a hobby aspect, or there's a particular model that you really love and you want to build around it, absolutely, this is your hobby. You do what you want to do. Please don't think we're rubbishing your army, but we're going to look at this from a very tactical, making the most out of it on a competitive scene. So that's just a bit of context we're going to put on this stream. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Cool. Well,
yes.
Let's start off and let's actually acknowledge who are the Bonereapers, who are the Bone Daddies. Liam, you're a bit of a lore master. I know you love nothing more than black library reading. Who are the Ossiarch Bonereapers and why are they in the Mortal Realms?
So Bonereapers have been Nagash's ongoing project since the Age of Myth. He's been doing this army in the back end. We haven't really been he's been kind of hinting it kind of thing. We kind of saw a little bit of hints through the Malign Portents narrative and stuff. And this army is his end game. Is this is pretty much his way of saying this is the apocalypse of the Mortal Realms. This is my chance now to take over. So these guys are bone constructs. They are pretty much made from different types of bone, from different types of beings, either animals, creatures, humans, children, your pet dog, your pet cat. And then they've also got a mismatch in souls. So yeah, Matt's laughing because he knows I'm actually doing this quite well, because he's just like, how does Liam know this?
Don't go at my dogs. And I imagine this is all happening because of the Soul Wars that last year we came out and kind of, Nagash was fighting for his souls. He was super annoyed at Sigmar for you know, taking the reforging souls that should be his into him to Nagash's realm.
Yeah, so pretty much Nagash has been taking souls himself as much as he can before Sigmar has a go at grabbing some, and then he just pretty much mix matches. So it's a mixed match of different bones, different souls, and he kind of like gets in, like when he comes and gets the souls, he pretty much gets the bits that he wants. Like if they're super pry, like pretty much if they're like a high warrior or very intelligent stuff, he grabs all that and then puts it in there. But if they have anything about like love or caring, he goes, no, we don't need that right now. I just need all this good stuff for my warriors. And every unit is like mixed match of different warriors and different beats kind of thing. So yeah, it's really, really cool. It's kind of like similar to what you kind of saw with Nighthaunt, like how every unit was like died a different way, and then they had like a different character for kind of thing. This is kind of something a bit similar, but like it's a lot more mixed match and stuff. So yeah, so it's pretty much bone constructs. Like they're like a lot more high level that a necromancer could actually do. Like necromancers can raise skeletons and stuff, but like a necromancer can't actually reconstruct a bone reaper. So yeah, so pretty much that's pretty much like the best way to summarize it in like lore terms. But this is pretty much Nagash's end game, where he's pretty much saying like, this is my grand army. Like it's like his Stormcast version of Order.
And so you can kind of see that in the model aesthetics. They've kind of built out some poses that are very Stormcast-esque.
Yeah, it's very Stormcast-esque, and also some of the rules kind of do remind me a bit of a Stormcast in a way, like how they fight in a way. But I'm not saying like they're just like Stormcast at all. But you can kind of tell that like this is Nagash's like way of saying like, okay, Sigmar, you brought Stormcast, I bring Bone Reapers, let's do this. And yeah, so it's a really cool army, really cool lore. And in this book, when you read it, there's actually so much cool stuff that explains like what kind of souls are in each unit. Like I do know that the Death Riders like mounts are based on different creatures and stuff. And then if someone really pissed off Nagash, he puts a human inside it along as well, like if you really pissed him off. So yeah, some really cool stuff where like you can kind of pretty much see that Nagash is really messed up in the head, which is kind of cool to see. And he's pretty much saying like, don't mess with me, or else you pretty much get stuffed into an animal. So yeah, it's really really cool stuff.
That's a fair reason not to piss off Nagash. Matt, anything you'd want to add to that?
Just the fact of where they've actually been this whole time. So they haven't just appeared from nowhere. So when Nagash and Sigmar first started the New World, Nagash's skeleton army was the ones that actually built all the new free cities and all that sort of thing. So while they were building the free cities above the ground, they were also building cities underneath these cities, where the Bone Reapers were underneath and building up their armies, and over the years they've been building their forces until such time that Catacross was released from his prison, and he now is come out to help lead the Bone Reapers, and they're all coming out, and
alongside Arcan as well.
Yeah, yes.
And we do have some of that Legions of Nagash, obviously Nagash, Arcan the Black. We've got very much that Morghast starting to come in. So there's a lot of familiarity in the army, but then also this whole new faction has been built around it. And as a Cities of Sigmar human, I am shitting myself when it comes to you taking my soul and, more importantly, my bones and my dog's bones. So I will be defending my castles and my forts with nothing but the finest Phoenix Guard that I have. And obviously, if you guys want to learn more about the lore, you've got the book. You've got people like 2+ Tough who put out some amazing lore videos. So this is definitely one that's going to advance the storyline of the Mortal Realm. So very, very excited about these guys coming into the faction. So more importantly, what brought you guys to starting up this Bone Reapers army? Matt, why would you drop your Legions of Nagash, and you've got a beautiful army full of Black Knights and skeletons and very traditional Nagash type units? Why would you drop them all to build this?
Probably one of two reasons. First reason is a new Death army. I always get behind the new Death releases, so it's been quite hard the last 2 years. It cost me a lot of money.
And you didn't really get many new models in Legions of Nagash, so this is the first proper new kit.
Well, there was Nighthaunt though. Nighthaunt, I smashed a lot of models and spent a lot of money there. But so yeah, new army, new rules to learn. The second reason was just with my Legions and Nagash army. There was a few changes with the middle of the year with the points changes. It was okay in the Sydney GT because we had 2,500 points to play with, but at 2,000 points, I'm finding it a little bit harder to run the list I want to run with Legions and Nagash. And I'm just finding myself a little bit more limited and finding it harder to compete with the armies like Slaanesh and Skaven as such. So just seeing off the cuff these new rules with this book, I sort of looked at it and thought, oh well, this could be an army that will be a bit more competitive on the scene, and it's a new army to collect. Probably one of the other things too, but
new army, new models, nice way to refresh the palette after having such an immersive experience with Legions.
Yeah, for sure, and just. Like with my Legions lists, you guys probably have seen a lot of my lists. They're always been a little bit different, and I've always tried to build them as competitively as possible. So coming into this army, it's probably a bit the same. I'm sort of getting in before everyone else, and I'm trying to make my own competitive list before there is any net lists, etc. So yeah, it'll be what I like and what I want to do at this stage. And then, look, if my list ends up, or similar to my list ends up becoming the norm and what everyone's playing, then my list will definitely change, and I'll try something different.
Fair enough. And Liam, what made you sacrifice the trees in order for the Bone Daddies?
Well, in honesty, I pretty much I remember. I think you and I had this discussion where we were talking about what if they did a new Death faction kind of thing. And then I remember, I forgot which preview it was. I was seeing the art, the videos for the new faction before we even knew it was a new faction. And honestly, when I saw the videos, I thought oh, it's going to be another goddamn campaign that we have to deal with. But no, when we saw the actual models, and what sold me was undead samurai. As most people know, I love Japanese culture kind of thing and stuff. And when I saw some samurai aesthetic into it, I was just yep, this is the army for me. And also the fact that I could kind of tell already by looking at the video that it was a super elite force. I could tell that it's not a horde or anything. So it was nice and refreshing, because all the armies that I played have always been horde based, except for my FEC when I did 5 Monster Mash for the hell of it. But that was probably the most elite army I could ever build. But then this kind of thing was just nice and refreshing. But it's models that speak to me, because since I'm into other different things my Japanese culture, anime, whatever, and I saw this, I was this is exactly what I want. And yeah, that's pretty much what drew me. It was just the models, honestly. And then the rules are just a bonus, in my opinion. The fact that I quickly realized that these are quite competitive, I was yeah, this is my jam. This is definitely an army that I could get along with. So yeah. But yeah, that's why I've joined the Bone Daddies.
Yeah, they're great new models. They have an interesting range. I got really excited when I saw the return of what was once known the Screaming Skull Catapult, which was that shooting phase that Death haven't had since day zero. Since day zero, the scream attacks under a zombie dragon is not a real shooting attack. So it's nice to see them get that phase back. It's not. Come on, man. It's 9 inches, 10-inch shot. It's not really a shooting attack.
Sorry, hang on. We got Tomb Banshees, Flayers, Terror Guys. They have souls.
And what's the range of those?
Flayers, I have no idea, because I should know
they're
this, because I have 18 of them.
They're all 10 inches or less. It's not really a shooting phase. Long story short, they've got new models, they've got a new story. You've got an interesting elite force, something that you don't need to take 60 zombies, 40 skeletons. You're not building around. Obviously, you can build legions as an elite force, but you're not incentivized to do it that way. You've got the shooting phase, which is the catapults. You've got an amazing hero, and the fact that you can bring over your Nagash, your Morghast, you can bring over Arkan, who is already an amazing wizard. This is a really cool book. Very cool book, and I think I'm really excited about getting deep into this. You guys ready to talk about the book?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, and how amazing is the Catacross model? That's what that sold me on the army too. That model.
See, what sold me was Immortus Guard. Those guys with big shields and samurai hats. Boom. Awesome stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do this.
Cool. So let's talk a bit about, we talked about what attracted you to the Force. I want to know at a very high level, if I was to pick up this book today, what are the strengths of the Bonereapers? So what am I really good at as an army? So we've already acknowledged that it's an elite force, or it can be quite easily an elite force. So we don't need to bring out a million models if I don't need to. What are the other strengths within this book, Matt?
I think its biggest strength is it's a hard to kill army. So a lot of the units, most of the army's melee based, obviously, and a lot of those units have abilities that can re-roll save rolls. So, for example, your Mortec Guard, for 1 point. What's the points called again? The
Regiment something.
It's called?
I call it Vegemite points.
Relentless discipline points. All right.
Yes.
So for one relentless discipline point, they can re-roll all their saves in a combat phase. So a unit of 20 of those with a 4-up save base, but in one of the allegiances, they're a 3-up base. And it just says re-roll saves. It doesn't say failed saves. So if you're getting hit with one rend, you're just rolling every 4 up or 4 below sort of thing. And yeah, they're pretty much hard to kill. The Stalkers, they're the same. You can make them either killy, or you can make them re-roll all their failed saves as well. So, and then you've got like the Harvesters. So if you lose models on a 4-up, they're sort of coming back. The whole army, I think, is sort of based around the fact that they're hard to kill. Okay. Even in all the different little factions, they're still hard to kill, and some of them work better if they do die. And we'll get to that later, but I think that's probably one of its biggest strengths. Also, it's got a lot of abilities that can affect other armies. Catacross, for example, can just make 1 unit on the board neg 1 to hit. So it's really, really good there. Then you've got your Bone Tithe Nexus, which is your scenery piece. It can make a unit neg 1 to hit as well within 18 inches on a 4-up. It can also affect a wizard on a 2-up. So it makes that wizard neg 1 to cast, neg 1 to unbind. So, yeah, so there's a lot of and then we'll go through the spell lore later, but a lot of the spells do help the army to survive and to So look, I think that I don't know about you, Lamb, but I reckon that the whole point of the army is just to survive. And they have a lot of rend and stuff like that.
So what I'm hearing before we get to Interligium is that it's elite. It has good spell casting. It's quite a resilient force. You got a terrain piece that's going to interact with your opponent in a negative way. You've got a whole bunch of abilities to, again, impact your opponent on a negative way, whether it's a minus to hit or something. So you've got a whole range of shenanigans. It's not just push your force forward, bring them back through grave sites, and cast a bunch of spells. Yeah, there's a bit more interactivity. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is a lot different to Legions and Nagash. So it's a completely different death army.
Liam?
This might surprise people, but they're surprisingly speedy.
Yes.
Straight up, they are surprisingly fast.
How fast are we talking? Are we talking like Nurgle fast with the Denial Maw, or are we talking like?
Well, you can actually make them Nurgle fast. You give the right buffs, you can actually make them Nurgle fast, which is ridiculous. It's
pretty crazy.
Like you can make them Nurgle fast. But so as we talked about relentless points, which I think we'll talk about very later, explain how it works. But for 1 point, you can give a unit +3 move. because just to make it, they can get +3 move. So your skeleton, like your Mortek Guard, movement 4. Now you made them movement 7, just easily. Just go cool movement 7, and then they got also most of the base battle line have +1 to run and charge. So even if they're 3 inches away, they're never going to fail a charge. So like once they're close to being near combat, they will get into combat. Then your other battle line choice, the Death Riders, are movement 12. Again, +3 move, plus movement 15. Like movement 15 cav.
I know. I play Cities of Sigmar at the moment, and there is a city that is called Tempest Eye, which gives +3 to movement, which I know everyone's really excited about. So the fact that you guys have that, and then all these other cool stuff, that's awesome.
So the thing is, your Tempest Eye is only for turn 1, right?
No, you get. Look, we're talking death here.
No, but I'm saying like
don't ping me on my rules. I'm hella hard.
But some things like that are like once per game. But like this one is just like all army.
I think it's +1 save. I think it's +1 save in the first turn. But we get the point. You got cool stuff.
Yeah. So one of the other big things too, Liam. I'll jump in. Sorry. Is every unit is its own hero.
I was literally going to say that.
But yeah.
What does that? What does that mean? That's I've never heard that before in a faction focus.
Yeah. So you go, Liam. You're about to talk about it.
So pretty much. So what we have this thing is called Hecatos. Is that the way I describe it? Hecatos? Yeah, Hecatos.
Yeah.
Where every unit has a Hecatos leader, which is pretty much like it's kind of best way to describe it. It's kind of like a general for a unit. Like it's a unit champion, but actually is the one that gives them the command ability. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's a unit leader that is on steroids. It's on steroids. He's much better than just a +1 attack or +1 to hit benefit.
So let's just say this right. Like the command abilities that you see in the War Scrolls, it's all because of him being in that unit. So if he's taken out, you can't get that command ability. And then your Deathless minion save for your 6-up after save is actually from him as well. So you don't actually need heroes nearby as long as your unit champion is alive because he has that keyword.
Okay. So no longer do I need that block of skeletons with a necromancer running around with that block. It's literally and there's very few things out there that can actually pin and take out a model like a Star Drake can, a giant can. Rare. There's very, very few interactions where you can actually specifically pull out a single model from a unit.
Yeah. So you literally will just give you a 6-up ward save, or he gives you a command ability. So like the +3 move, right? Let's just say some Mortek Guard are on the side and they're trying to get to that objective on the side. You go, okay, cool. That unit champion's going to be right, boys, we're going to go +3 move, and he just makes them move 7 just because he was nearby. It's not has to be near a hero or anything. So all these command abilities that you get from your Par Legions or anything like that, it's actually all getting from them as well. So they're pretty much heroes in a unit on steroids.
That's scary.
So all right. They're very, very cool. The fact that they've written the book pretty much saying that everyone is its own hero, and it clearly is shown in that.
So they're independent is what I'm hearing, is that
yes.
No longer do you require a character to follow around. You play Daughters of Cain and you've got your Hag Queen that follows around with your witch elves. You've got your skeleton and your necromancer. What you're telling me is that these units don't need to be in power pairs. They act independently, or obviously you can synergize them with other units, but it's not as much required as other forces.
Yes, that's correct. So
shit.
It's a really cool mechanic, which I do hope to see more on, not in every army, but in some other armies where the unit champion's actually a proper champion. If that makes sense, because most times when you get a unit champion, all it gives you is +1 attack.
+1 a hit, +1 attack. It doesn't do a lot.
It doesn't do a lot.
He gives you +1 attack as well. So he's...
Oh, yeah, +1 attack as well.
Just rub it in. Just rub it in. All right, I'm sick of hearing what you guys are good at. I want to know what you suck at. So what isn't this army good at?
Okay, so the
Bodies?
same thing. Well, not really. You can take a lot of Mortek Guard, but I think the same that all death armies fail to is shooting. Shooting, probably actually this army more, because the abilities that I was saying before, like the rerolled saves abilities, can only be used in the combat phase. So any shooting that's hitting them, they're not getting that reroll.
Okay, so it's not your shooting. it is when you've got an opponent who's going to shoot you. That you're going to have a bit more of a bad time.
Yeah. So and the other thing is, they can be quite susceptible to mortal wounds. So normal attacks against them in combat, unit of 20 Mortec Guard, for example, in Petrifix Elite, 3-up re-rolling saves, is going to tank just about anything in the game. But once you start adding those mortal wounds, they just pop. Like, they're only 1 wound models, and they just disappear quite quick. So mortal wounds and shooting opponents, opponents with shooting, will really hurt the army.
And that horde, you said horde, it's not really an army that is going to be throwing. It's not Gloomspite kits and throwing, units of 60 and units of 40 at your opponent.
Look, you can build units of 40 Mortec. They do get their discount, but they're 400 and something
40.
points.
Yeah,
440
right.
or something. So it's a big point sink for 1 unit.
I mean, I can drive with my feet doesn't make it a good idea, and I guess taking a big block of those guys may not necessarily be the best.
And the other thing is too, they then they start suffering to their Holy Within rules. So their Hecatos, what we we're just talking about, their leader, his death save's only a 6-inch bubble, and it's a Holy Within. So if you've got a unit of 40, it's going to be pretty hard to get them all in that bubble once you start spreading them out. But obviously heroes, if they're close by, they have a 12-inch bubble, but once again, they're not going to always be close enough. So I think, mortal wounds and shooting will be their biggest downfall. But there is ways around that. With the mortal wounds, there's ways around it. There's a spell. So for anything with the shields, there's a spell that they ignore mortal wounds on a 5-up, plus they still get their death save of a 6-up. So yeah, and then there's also another faction we'll talk about later, but it's very good against spells, and that spells is another big way of doing mortal wounds, obviously. So that's what I see with them, their biggest weakness.
Am I right to assume, just going back to a strength for a second, am I right to assume that they have a high bravery like legions?
Everything's bravery 10, and nothing takes battle shock.
We don't take battle shock.
I mean, it's hard enough to make death take battle shock to begin with, but the fact that in that off chance you get, I don't know, Scarbrand and does 50 damage, you're still immune to battle shock.
Yeah, you can. If you got a unit of 40 Mortec Guard and you lose 36 of them, say for example you were playing Legions in a Gash with a unit of Skellies. As soon as you lose over 20 odd Skellies, I think the number's 24 or something. As soon as you lose that many, the whole unit's gone in battle shock. Whereas these guys, you lose 24, they've still got 16. So it's just that they're never running away.
I mean, at minimum, you're keeping a command point up your sleeve. At worst, you've got a unit there that you're going to still be able to bring back from the dead.
Exactly. Yep.
One weakness is we don't really have access, or we don't have access to the generic command abilities, which are super helpful sometimes in important clutch moments, like reroll,
reroll charging,
reroll charges. Yeah.
So you don't get them at all?
No, we don't get them.
We're
not allowed to have them.
Sucked in.
It's all right.
That's all I got.
I think that's one thing, because there is so many times in that clutch moment where you need to make that run roll of a 6. Even though +3 move does help, but but
a +3 move plus you're rolling a d6. You can still run after that +3. So you're still rolling a d6. Even if you roll a 1, that's 4 inches. And then you've got on their banners, they're an extra inch run. So you're still minimum 5-inch move. So even if if you rolled a 6, you're moving 7 plus the 3. So you're moving 10 inches on top of your actual move with a run. So as you said before, Liam, they're actually quite fast. So I don't think losing that ability is huge.
It's more re-rolling charges if you want to get into combat. It kind of sucks. That does hurt. So, but there's some units in this book where their command ability is reroll charges, but it's 1 or 2 of them. That's it. So, I think that's one kind of thing. Another negative I would say is there isn't really one.
I'll say one
Can't- I
more,
can't-
and
I
you
can't
you
really-
guys
I
can
can't really
challenge
think
me.
of one.
You guys
Yep.
can challenge me on this one, and then we'll move into what I get for my dollar. Is that, speaking of dollars, that it's potentially an expensive army to get into because it's so new. If you've missed that Feast of Bones box set, it could be hard to start this army, and I can't imagine many people are out there on the reseller markets selling out some of the core like your Mortek Guard. So this is not an army that's going to be super cheap to get into initially. Maybe over time people might start flipping their armies, but right now, as you know, we're 4 weeks at worst into this. It's not as cheap to get into. Is that a fair
Yeah.
call?
Look, I think you're looking around $1,000 maybe to build a army.
To give you an idea, though, our Mortek Guard is in the same box size as a box of Skellies. So like you get 20, but that can be 2 units of 10. So that's 2 Battleline there sorted. I think you're kind of looking at the same thing with Deepkin. Is the best way to describe it. Deepkin is a very expensive army to collect, especially if you want to go to competitive route when you want to buy just masses of eels or masses of sharks. #shark meta. But yeah, so pretty much like it kind of is, but at the same time there is ways. Like if you're just going to go heavy Mortek, I think you start fine because like those boxes are such good value. But also I think people need to remember is these models are brand new technology and everything. Of course, like they're so dynamic for what they are. Like some really cool poses for like a def. Like when we think def, we kind of think rigid.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that that's a negative, but it's certainly something that you might want to consider when you enter this force. Is that there's not a lot of cheap ways to get into the army. Because you don't have a start collecting box, because that Feast of Bones sold out literally within hours of its release. So it's just something to keep in mind if you haven't already started. It could be a little bit more expensive, but obviously your dollars are well worth the investment because they are awesome models. And what we're seeing on the tabletop already is just top notch. They are great for contrast paints as well as they're great for those really skilled painters. They're very forgiving.
Yeah, they're awesome, but yeah, I do know what you mean with the pricing, but at the same time, like it's not as bad as Deepkin kind of thing where like a box of Thralls.
No, but they're not as cheap as Stormcast. Is kind of where I'm going with this. It's not as cheap as Stormcast.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
And before we move on, another one of the big strengths that we both forgot about, which I see, is the endless spells. So normally armies that cast an endless spell, if you take priority, your opponent then moves it into your army, does a heap of damage. This army, that does not happen. You cast all your endless spells on the board. Your opponent take priority that next turn. You move all your own endless spells first before any other endless spells on the board move. So if you're the two of them do damage. One of them main one does a heap of damage. You move it, so your opponent's not moving it into you and attacking you with it.
So if you cast Geminids, do you get to move that first, or is that back in the normal sequence?
I think
your endless spell. You go, Matt.
Yeah. You move. Sorry. So you move the Ossiarch Bonereaper ones. All move first.
Okay.
Yep. And then I think then it goes whoever gets to choose first, then they choose the first endless spell.
Okay, so that rule doesn't interact with if a Bone Reapers player was to cast, I don't know, Quicksilver Swords, they were to cast, Geminids, they would cast the Pendulum. It's not like you move them at the start of the sequence. It goes back into the traditional way that we move endless spells. It's just the Bone Reaper endless spells get to be moved first.
Yeah, as far as I can see. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So they have a rule called Soul Linked, which is kind of cool, which I think we should start seeing more of endless spells or prayers. Where only one Bone Reaper, so a Bone Reaper wizard can only cast one of these endless spells. So like you can't have like Arcane casting like one at one turn and another one at the next one. You just can't do that. So you have to cast like one each, and pretty much that -1 to cast when that is on the board. And then if the wizard dies, so does that spell.
All right. And we will talk about endless spells later, but I think we're segueing into what you get for your allegiance. So if I swear my allegiance to the Bone Reapers as opposed to, I don't know, Grand Alliance Death, what do I get for my allegiance, Liam?
What you get is pretty much you get Lords of the Ossiarch Empire. So Arkan and Nagash can gain the Bone Reaper keyword when you add them in. So pretty much if you have Nagash or Arkan, you pretty much got a cool hero, mainly Arkan. We can talk about Nagash later. But they gain the Bone Reaper's keyword, and then after this, they can also gain anything from a sub-legion. So once you put them in the list, they get that keyword. Then when you select your sub-legion, they also get those buffs. And then with the Ossiarch Bone Reaper Legions, you get an option of 6, which I think is the most we've seen since since Sylvaneth and Caradron.
Outside of cities?
Outside of cities, yeah.
Outside of cities, yeah. So the sub-allegiance, guys, if you're not familiar with this language, is, your Bone Reapers is your allegiance. But then within that, Sylvaneth have their particular groves, Stormcast have chambers, Daughters of Cain have temples. They're all like this sub-allegiance. There's no common real language, but for the purpose of this, you have what's called the Bone Reaper legions, which is the Ivory Host. You got so many cool ones.
So some of the heroes in this book already have got a particular one, which is the Mortis Petronians. But then if you added those guys into, let's say, another legion, they also gain that keyword, so they gain both, which is kind of cool. Deathless Warriors, which is pretty much your Death Minion thing, so 6-up ward. And then Ranks Unbroken, which is pretty much you ignore Battle Shock. So your opponent says, okay, Battle Shock phase, and you go, no, we don't do that here. So this is the really cool rule. It's the Relentless Discipline rule. So we have been FAQ'd, but we still get command points every turn, but we can't use them. So for the purpose of, let's say, Nighthaunt, who steals command points, they can still steal our command points, but they don't steal our Relentless points, if that makes sense. So instead, we use these things called Relentless Discipline points. Now, this bit gets a bit tricky sometimes when you explain this to opponents, so this is my best way to simplify it. So you get one, this is at the start of the turn. So either way, let's just battle round. So pretty much you get 1 if you're running a battalion. You get 1 if you have a liege. And then you get 1 for each hero that you have. So let's just say you have 3 heroes, right? For the purpose, because most of these lists, I think me and Matt have written have 3. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that gives me already now 5. Let's say I have a battalion in there. This is just for example's purpose.
For sure. So the average 3 heroes, plus I'm taking, these things, I've got 5 of these points.
5 of these points, because the liege gives you an extra 1. And so technically your liege is getting 2, straight up. Now what you do is then you roll number of dice when you have units on the board. So as the game goes on, if you have units wiped out, you lose dice. You roll those amount of dice. So let's just say we have 8. You roll 8 dice. Any 6s, that's an extra point.
Okay, so right now I've got 5 points hypothetically. I roll my dice. I roll luckily 2 6s. I've now got 7 points or 5 points. Yep.
Now what you can do now is these points get used in the whole battle round. So pretty much what you have is in this battle round, you use them both in your turn and your opponent's turn.
Right, so I've got 7 points. I've got 7 points.
They only last for 1 turn.
Right, so I can't carry them over to my next turn. Does that mechanic it resets?
Yes. So then so let's just say you won priority and you're taking it, I get my points refreshed still.
Yeah.
So I get a new batch of points just from that.
So at the battle round is when I get points.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now you get to use these for all the different command abilities that the Bone Reaper units have. So this is when you start seeing some really cool synergy with both the sub-legions and the heroes and other stuff. So it's a really cool mechanic. And it really goes with the narrative of these guys being like trained military army where everyone, as we said, every unit has a champion and they are using the command points as well.
Cool. So just to pick this up really quickly, I have 7 points. If I start the battle round, so I take the top of the turn, I have my turn and my opponent's turn to use my points. If I'm given second, so if I lose the priority roll or I lose first turn, then I'm really only going to get those points. I get those points only for my turn because straight after my turn, I'm going into a new battle round. So
you get to most of the abilities, like the Mortec Guard, for example, their reroll saves. It happens in the combat phase, so it's your opponent's combat phase too. But the big downfall to them, like yes, it sounds like you're getting a lot of points. 7 points is a lot, but you got to use it every combat phase. It doesn't carry over to your next hero phase like most command abilities do. So,
Right.
for example, if you've got 3 Mortek Guard units on the board and you want to keep them alive, that's three discipline points you spend
Already used up.
in your opponent's combat phase, and then you're doing it in your combat phase. So there's 6 points gone already out of your 7. So it's like, it actually, as many as it sounds like you're getting, they run out very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so to summarize, I get my points at the start of the battle round. I can use it in my turn or my opponent's turn. At the start of every battle round, those points reset, so I don't carry them over. And the challenge is going to be for our generals is resource management. Do I spend them all in my turn or my opponent's turn, and then, or like basically, do I blow them early? Do I hold them till later?
So like
it started the battle round.
Yeah. So let's just say turn 1, you token the turn, right? And then at the bottom of that turn, it's your opponent's turn. And let's just say you have 3 left in their combat phase, right? Or 4 left. You do all the ones that you want to do important, like reroll saves. And if you have any spare left, just spend them, because then you get a refresh. Does that make sense?
Yeah, mate.
Like you don't really want to have any spares at the bottom of the battle round.
Perfect. Well, let's talk tactics later on, but I think conceptually our listeners probably understand now how those points work, because I imagine at first glance it might seem confusing. When do I get it? Because it's a very different mechanic than a command point mechanic.
Yeah. So, and then the last thing that they get is Unstoppable Advance, which is every Hekatos and hero has the +3 to the move as like command ability.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what you get out of it, which is sweet.
Perfect. And then the obvious thing, and we'll talk about this, is that obviously you get a terrain piece as well. So you get this nexus, this massive piece of terrain that Matt, where do I put this piece of terrain? What's the restrictions?
So it's actually really cool. They've brought out new rules now, so we don't have to worry about anything else. So technically, according to the rule of setting this up, you should set up your board with all your objectives before terrain, and then this goes down. So this goes down before any terrain, but after objectives. So you can't put it within 6 of an objective like the normal rules, but you can put it anywhere on the board pretty much. So the good thing about it is it has a lot of its abilities are a 18-inch bubble. So you probably more often than not, it's going center of the board. But you've got to keep it away from those objectives.
Yeah. So what are you getting for that? So in the hero phase, you can choose what to unleash. So you've got 4 different punishments that you can unleash that do mortal wounds. You can subtract 1 from the hit roll. You subtract casting and dispel and unmind.
And the most important one,
on a 4+, that unit cannot run.
And only can do 1d6 charge. Yeah, so good. So good.
I think the punishment of death one's probably one of the worst ones, because that's just 1 mortal wound. Like you might use it, but it's probably the least usable one. I think I played a game the other day, and the one I used every turn was the wizard one, to make a wizard neg 1 to cast and neg 1 to unbind. I think that's a really, really powerful ability. And it's a 2+, so you more often than not it's going off. Whereas the other 2, the neg 1 to hit and the no run and charge one, is a 4+. So you're only getting that off
swingy.
Yeah. Whereas my game the other day though, in saying that, in 2 rounds I rolled 2 1s for the bloody wizard thing. So
I just rate the punishment of the Lephegry, because like you have armies and stuff that can run and charge. So for example, Witch Elves, which is quite scary and fast, you kind of just be like, just do that, and then you go, cool, not today, which I thought was really cool.
Well, it's going to impact things like your Iron Suns, Iron Jaws armies, which are very, very fast, can do a turn 1 charge. Khorne definitely has some speed. Nurgle has some speed. You said the Witch Elves can have speed. There's so many things out there that can run and charge or run and shoot. that could significantly hold back an objective from your opponent or stop them from being where they want to be, which is only a good thing for you.
The only problem with those 2 4+ abilities, you got to be wholly within 18 of the Bone Tithe Nexus, whereas the Wizard one and the Mortal Wound one, it's 36 inches. So yeah, look, I could probably tell you right now, I think most games I'm going to be going for the Wizard one, depending on your opponent, obviously. But yeah,
like my +6, +8 Hallow Heart.
Yeah. Now you're +7. Ha!
Damn it. No, but look, it's a great terrain piece, and I think more importantly as well, you're not going to be impacted by some of the terrain rules that other armies are going to be impacted with. So the fact that you get to set up before any other piece of terrain is something that we will need to just get adjusted to as we attempt to, and obviously if you've got any challenges or any concerns about the table, I believe Games Workshop's advice is to speak to the TO, because technically your piece of terrain goes down first before any other piece of terrain.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we know the weaknesses, we know the strengths, we know what we get for our allegiance. Do you guys want to start building some lists?
Yep.
Yeah. We could, but like we could talk about the sub-legions because our lists are based off sub-legions.
Okay, we absolutely could. So we've got a whole bunch of sub-allegiance. Thanks for ruining the show, Liam. Like always, no. So you do have a bunch of sub-allegiances, and there are 6. Liam, you were talking earlier that it's one of the most robust ones that we have. A sub-allegiance essentially is how do we summarize this sub-allegiance thing?
It's just a buff for the whole army. So when you write your army list, you pretty much pick one of these things and you get a special ability or a special artifact. So you pretty much get these abilities, but then you must take a command trait and must take an artifact, and then you also get a command ability. So you get some buffs, but sometimes it's like attacks.
Do I have to take one of these 6?
No. So
okay.
You can run your own legion, and that means you get your own traits and options for artifacts, which is kind of cool. There are some good ones where you can do that and some really good traits, but there's just some of these things that just give you such a strong buff for an army like this that you kind of always want to take a sub-faction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they all have a different flavor. And the great thing about this book is that this book, in my opinion, and me and Matt have spoken about this before, if the meta changes, there is a sub-faction here that has an answer to that meta.
Yeah, I feel that with like with Seas of Sigmar is that some of them are very much of a much, like you still get the same type of flavor. It's just a slight difference. This one is going to allow you to really adapt to the meta, or essentially the armies or the competition, or what's very common in your scene. You got a lot of shooting armies. You might want to have something that deals with shooting armies better, or whatever it might be. So the sub-allegiance essentially will start to shape your list building. Is that correct, guys?
Yes.
Cool. Sure. And obviously, once I pick this sub-allegiance, I start to see some of these abilities I'm going to get. And then I can start thinking about which heroes, units, and additional artifacts and all that good stuff really takes makes the most of my sub-allegiance. So we do have 6. We go from order, and we've got our Mortas. Do you guys want to kick this one off? How do we want to handle this? Are all 6 good?
Yes.
Yep. Because that was one of the questions, right? Because there's one particular one that we all know is super strong, and everyone's talking about it. And one of the questions that I always had was, are they all good? Is one just better than the other, or is there a bit of secret list tech that will come out later?
Secret list tech. I'm going to give a good example. Is a book where there was no other option, in my opinion, was, and I still argue saying there is more options in it, but Doors of Cain, for example, everyone just went for Hagnar because it was the easiest one, right? You just read the rules and go, cool, that's way too good. While I did play Hagnar for the first 3 months, but then I started looking at other things, being like, there's actually some really cool secret tech that you can do with this one, where I was like doing a bravery kind of thing with Jake and Neff. Anyways, this here, there is clearly a good one, but everyone's going to take for the first 3 or 4 months, right? And then the people who truly love this army are literally going to explore the other ones. Like Matt and myself have already spoken about like different lists with different legions. And already talking about like if the meta changes into this, I already have an answer to this with this and this and this. So, yeah, they're all really good, but there's just one where like it's like the Hagnar like go to if you just open the book.
All right, we'll get to that when it comes up. So the first one is this Mortas one, where you're going to get Liam. Do you want to take us through while you're chatting us through? Do you want to give us a bit of a high level of what this one's about?
I was actually going to pass it to Matt because Matt actually is doing one about this one. So yeah.
Yep, I'm pretty sure I said Matt. Matt, kick us off.
Okay, so the Mortis Praetorians. Look, the only reason you would want to take this faction is if you're taking Catacross, as far as I'm concerned. The only abilities you get army wide with this one is a neg1 bravery debuff. Yes, that's okay sometimes, but compared to all the other options in this book, that ability is quite meh. Like, it's not really that great. But the fact that you can take Catacross and hit one of his command abilities affects Mortis Praetorians, which is the +1 to save in a bubble. That definitely is a good option to take this Legion. Their command ability, which the command abilities in all of them are used the same way. So you need a Hekatos keyword or a hero, etc. within range. So this one is if a unit of yours is charged, you can spend one of your discipline points until the end of the turn. You can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by that unit that target an enemy unit that made a charge move in the same turn. So this is really good for, say, for example, your Stalker units who at the start of combat phase, we'll get to it probably later, but at the start of the combat phase, they can choose what they're going to be doing. So they can reroll failed hits, failed wounds, failed saves, or they can go all out attack and get +2 damage, +1 rend on +1 rend, +1 damage on their attacks. So for example, if you want to go with your Stalkers, you want to give them the extra damage and rend, you can also spend this extra point and they're re-rolling failed hits as well. So they're really turning into a beast in combat. So
this ability is being rewarding a unit that gets charged.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So this command ability is not about you charging your opponent. This is about you being charged and then throwing down that command ability to essentially take on what's essentially a counter strike.
Yes, exactly. So for example, you had 2 units that have been charged by your opponent. You do this at the start of the combat phase, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
But at the end of the enemy charge phase, at the end of their charge phase. So you can kind of get in your opponent's head a bit by making them choose where they're going to activate their models first. So if you're, as I say, if you get charged by 2 of their units, you could put this on one of your units that you know will survive anyway, and that'll make them attack that unit first and might give your other unit more of a chance to fight back first, if you know what I mean. So it's just it will be a good tactical getting in your opponent's head sort of ability as well as far as and as well as being a good command ability. So yeah, I can see it quite good there. And then you got your command trait, which, look, if you're taking Catacross, you don't even worry about this because you can't take it. But if you do decide you want to take Mortis Praetorians, you get the option. You have to take this command trait, and it's once per battle at start of your hero phase. If this general's on the battlefield, you can receive D3 additional relentless discipline points. So once again, Mortis Praetorians, their ability is pretty meh. Their command trait's pretty useless. A once per game command trait, I don't like once per game anything. And then the artifact. Sorry, yeah.
Just also quickly, when you have Catacross, so why you're saying take Catacross is because it also gives you 3 relentless points.
Yeah,
as opposed to the D3 once per battle.
No. Yeah. He just gets 3 every turn.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So instead of asking for once per battle an additional D3, you're always generating 3.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which is why you're very, very, very unlikely you wouldn't take Catacross in this
Yeah.
particular legion.
And look, you wouldn't take this legion without him. Like I just don't see why you would want to take this legion without him. And then the artifact of power, it's actually quite good. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, change the rend characteristic of that weapon to -3. But in saying that, we don't really have a lot of killer heroes. The Liege Cavalos, he's okay, but look, as I say, I don't think the Mortis Praetorians, you wouldn't take it without Catacross.
Also, that what's that named? Arch Legion.
Yeah, he has the Mortis Praetorian keyword as well.
Yeah, but he gives you rerolls, which is kind of cool. So
yeah,
but it's only in that legion.
But then exactly. So
Mortis Bretonia. I'm going to call it Bretonia from now on. The Bretonians of the Bone Daddies, they're okay. It's got some alright stuff, some counter charge stuff, but it's alright.
They're cool.
But you chuck Catacross if you want to take Catacross, you take him in this legion, and this legion becomes really good.
Yeah,
cool. Happy to move on.
Yep.
All right, let's talk. Let's talk about the talk of the town. Liam, I'm sure you've built 100 lists with this particular force.
Yeah, totally. I have. I definitely have.
Why is this the talk of the town? Why is this the one that everyone's talking about?
Two things, right? Straight up. It's one, it's ability, and second thing, it's command ability. Command ability is huge.
So what does the Prefects Elite give us?
So pretty much these guys, just a fun fact about you guys, these guys are made out of fossils. So they're hard bone. So for this, they get add 1 to save rolls for the whole army. Just add 1
save Nagash.
2+ save Nagash, 3+ Arcan, 2+ Liege. I can keep Rylan billing on if you want, but everything's either on a 2 up or 3 up.
So you're averaging 2 up or 3 up across the entire army.
Yeah.
Anything under 3?
What do you mean? Like
Nagash.
No, sorry. So anything above 3, like, do you have any really bad armor?
The heroes are squishy.
So you kind of like nothing in the 4 and 5 range.
Nothing after this one, yeah.
Wow.
That named character that no one's really going to be using is on a 6 up for fun facts, but like we don't really talk about him. But then the command ability, so bludgeon. So pretty much same thing as before, just like if you have a Hecatos or elite hero in the combat phase. So importantly, this is in a combat phase. So you don't have to say this at the start. So in that combat phase, improve the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by that unit by 1. You cannot pick the same unit to benefit from this ability more than once. So your Mortec guard now are 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s if they're buffed up 2s, generating new attacks on 6s or 5s, winning on 4s, rend 2, damage 1. And that's your basic battle line.
And I can do that in your turn or my turn. And unlike most command abilities where you have to declare it at the start of combat, you can declare this at any time during combat because it doesn't actually say when it needs to be declared other than combat phase.
Some of these command abilities, actually, a lot of them don't say at the start, which is quite interesting.
That's a really good call out because most people, if they're going to use a command point or a command ability, traditionally have to declare it at the start. So know that, you could roll your dice, see that you have a really, maybe you have a below average roll and you really need to do a certain amount of damage. You could throw down that command ability and increase the rend characteristic to increase the likelihood of more damage. So, or if you really want to delete a unit, you could always apply it after a whole bunch of good rolls.
Well, for example, you chuck them on the Stalkers, which I was talking about before. So their blades are normally 1 rend, but if you go Killy stance, they're 2 rend. Then if you spend this discipline point, their normal swords go to -3 rend 2 damage, and then they also have the Dread Falchion, which is a -4 rend 3 damage weapon with the 1 discipline point.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
Yeah.
Great.
Good stuff.
General gets 2 wound characteristics.
Get 2 wound characteristic. The artifact, which is really good for your support heroes like your Bone Shapers or Soul Masons. the first wound allocated to the bearer in each phase is negated.
Great.
So let's just say someone just like did a little pop shot, and then you go, cool, I negated anyways.
Great. So and that's in each phase as well. So
Yep. That's in hero phase, shooting phase, combat, movement, everything. They just negate it.
And that's your turn, my turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a lot of negating.
It is a lot of negating.
I chuck both of these on my Liege Cavalos, so he goes from 7 wounds to 9, and then he's a 2-up save, and he ignores the first wound every phase.
I gave it to my Bone Shaper.
Yeah, I don't care if he survives.
I gave him my Bone Shaper because there's another artifact that he can give your Liege that makes the whole army better. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
But there's some really cool stuff you can do.
This is an easy win, and we can see why.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why. Yeah.
That's exactly. It's literally, in honesty, it's honestly everything there. Like, you know how I just said sometimes when you pick one of these things, there's a tax to it. There's really no tax.
Yeah. No, this is great, and obviously the +1 armor save across the entire board is where the money is.
So so that's why I was saying about the Mortis Praetorians, like you read their abilities and you're just like, this is nothing. Like it's crap compared to the Petrifex Elite.
Yeah.
The next one's one of my favorite ones. So
you can talk about this one, Liam.
All right, I'm now going to call these guys the Staunch Lords. You guys can feel free. You guys feel free to correct me the whole way through. I'm just gonna.
That's fine. I'm happy to call them Staunch Lords. But
all right, cool.
Lords
Talk about the Lords. Yes.
Dothraki.
These guys are pretty much based off the Death Riders, kinda. But you can write some really cool lists with them. Make some really scary units even scarier. But the whole army runs and charges. And you know how we just talked?
So sorry, what?
The whole army runs and charge.
Whoa.
So you know how we're talking about how some of the units are really fast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this makes them even faster.
Cool. So obviously we can't use a command point to make that run roll a 6, but we can certainly roll some good dice and still charge later in the same turn, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And as we talked about before, a lot of the battle line and stuff have +1 to charge because of the banners. So
I can't run and shoot though. I can run and charge, but I can't run and shoot.
Only run and charge.
We don't have much shooting.
To be honest, we've got 2 little slow shooter things, and I'm pretty sure you don't really run them. You just want them at the back. But so that's pretty much what these guys can do. Now, the command ability is really cool. It lets you pretty much retreat and charge. So there's some units that get a buff, such as the Death Riders, that get a buff from charging. They do some more damage, or like their lances and spears get better on the charge. So you can just keep doing that every turn, just running and charging, retreating and charging.
So it's great for stealing objective. It's great to kind of bounce off a unit and then get to a juicier target, maybe that's sitting behind the opponent that you're trying to go for, or even just better position yourself.
Yeah. So this, as you can already see, just by these 2 abilities, this whole thing is all about movement. It's the movement legion. Like these guys are quick. If they want to be somewhere, they will be there. So at the start, and then the trait at the start of the combat phase, you pick 1 enemy hero within 3 inches of this general until the end of that phase. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target that enemy hero, but subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target any other unit. So it's like focus firing. It's not amazing. And this is when we start seeing that like these 2 great buffs, but then you start seeing the tax come in because of this. Now this one here is really interesting. So if the first Steliok Lord's Liege to receive an artifact of power must be given this mount artifact, which is you can roll D3 additional dice when this Liege uses the unstoppable charge ability where he does mortal wounds on the charge. But if you're not running a Liege in this army or in this thing, you don't actually have to take that artifact. So there's a little loophole where you can just pick your own artifacts by not running a Liege, or you can run a Liege. You can run a Liege that's named, such as the named Liege that I mentioned before, because he can't take an artifact, so then the other 2 artifacts can be given to your other heroes.
So there is a way to get around this artifact. So if I don't take, if I take a named Liege or I don't take a Liege, then I'm not forced to take this artifact, which unlocks at minimum 1 artifact, if not 2 if I take a battalion.
Yes. So just a little thing. So if you take the vanilla Liege, you have to take this artifact. But if you take the named one, he can't receive artifacts, so he negates this ability. So you get 2 of your own option if you take battalion.
Yep, and I think that's in an FAQ or a designer note if people are looking for where this fact come from. So that was clarified. I can't remember where it was, but I'm pretty sure it's an FAQ or a designer note.
it was a Marathi FAQ when everyone was taking her and Hagnar, thinking that she could give the 5-up ward save. And then they said no, you had to like, it was this whole weird thing. But that's pretty much where the loophole has come from. So yeah.
Cool. And do we like this what do we call them? Legion?
So to give you an idea, I rate the Petrifex Elite as like top. These guys are my second top. Like these guys I think are definitely up there as, after you see the Petrifex Elite have its fun, this is probably up there around as the next one, but you'll see heaps.
And this is because Age of Sigmar is very much a movement-based game, and the fact that we get all these cool abilities that are based around movement, certainly the run and charge, really gives us a significant advantage on the tabletop to get around and to start securing objectives or to expose loopholes, something that a lot of armies just don't have.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next one we've got is the Ivory Host. Matt, do you want to take this one?
Yep. Yeah, so Ivory Host, I think I haven't looked at it really hard, but from what I've seen, I think it's more of the elite style army. So you want to be taking all your multi-wound models in this army. The reason for that is so their ability, start of the combat phase, each friendly Ivory Host unit that is within 6 inches of a friendly Ivory Host model that currently has any wounds allocated to it becomes subject to rage until the end of that phase. So you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by a unit that is subject to rage, but you subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target a unit that is subject to rage. So if you've got a lot of multi-wound models, chances are you're going to have 1 or 2 of them are going to be wounded. So you're getting +1 to your hit rolls. Then onto their command ability, it's pretty much you spend a discipline point, and you do not subtract that 1 from your save rolls. So when you got rage, you're going to have to subtract 1 from your save rolls. The command ability means you don't have to subtract that 1, and but you
so
still.
if I'm willing to burn the command ability or the whatever that point is you have in your faction, I'm able to really double dip by getting the +1 attack and then avoiding that -1 to my armor save.
+1 to hit.
Yeah, sorry, for +1 to hit, but I'm ignoring that subtraction of an armor save against my unit. So I'm getting the best of both worlds. Should I be willing to burn those points?
Yes. Look, in saying that, most of this army hits on 3s. There's a lot of other ways of getting +1 to hit. So I don't know. Do you take this army just for that option or not? So that's kind of where I've looked at it and sort of thought, well, it's probably not really worth it. But then going on to the command traits, you can really buff up one of your heroes. So in each of your hero phases, so you got to get the command trait, Scrim Short Savage. You roll a dice on a 5+, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons used by this general for the rest of the battle. So, you're probably, on average, you're only going to get +1 or 2 for a whole game. But, if you roll hot, by turn 5, you're +5 attacks on some of these weapons. But on
the law of average, you get 2 of those at best during a game. And even then, it's like 1.6 or something.
Yeah, you're probably going to chuck that on your Liege Cavalos, who normally only has 3 attacks anyway with 2 damage. So, but then also the Artifact of Power. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 1 to the attacks characteristic. So you're getting +1 already from the artifact, and if it's your general that's got the artifact, then they're getting possible +1 every turn. But on average, on average you might get +3 for the game.
So I'm getting potentially a lot of attacks. I'm getting pluses to hit, and with essentially a quote unquote CP, I'm able to ignore my -1 armor save roll. Yeah.
So look, there's an endless spell for 20 points, 30 points I think it is, gives you +1 to hit. So you can just take one of the other legions, cast that spell, you're getting +1 to hit anyway. Catacross gives you +1 to hit in a bubble. So I don't really see the point of taking the Ivory Host, to be honest. But
maybe you're in a
it's
meta.
cool.
Maybe you're in a meta. There's lots of like goblins with netters and plague bearers with -1 to hit, and maybe there's other, I don't know, lots of negatives in your meta.
Yeah.
But I can see there's a lot of redundancy here.
Yeah.
I got to say that these guys do have a really cool color scheme. So I think this is really something where, like, if you really like that color scheme and you want to play it as a narrative, that's probably where it's aimed at. Maybe like where, like Matt, like in this book, everyone has a different color scheme that you can kind of go by as like KO kind of thing. These guys have a really cool color scheme, and some people are actually painting that color scheme. So some people might just run it just to match their color scheme in a way, like those narrative players. But yeah, I don't really see a place for it. But.
Okay. I mean, it's hard when we're looking at the Petrifix, but cool. That's the Ivory Host. It's all right. Lots of combat, a lot of redundancy, potentially maybe too much redundancy, but who knows what we're going to see in the meta coming up. The next one we have is the Null Myriad. Liam, are you taking this one?
Yeah, this is a cool one because this one, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, where you saw heavy spellcasting from Zeech and Nurgle and stuff. So if that meta comes back, this is like the perfect one to bring it back. So pretty much each time a Null Myriad unit is affected by a spell or an endless spell, you can roll a dice. If you do so on a 5-up, ignore the effects of that spell or endless spell on that unit.
So that's the same rule as Hallowheart.
Yeah. Now this bit is the better, where it's better than Hallowheart, where you can spend one regiment, the 1 point, and discipline point, and you pretty much get to ignore it on a 2-up.
Okay, so Hallowheart can cast a spell and reduce it from a 5 to a 4-up, while you can use a discipline point to bring that down to a 2+ if you are within 6s of the little unit champion, or 12 wholly within 12 of a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best part is too, you don't have to do it until the spell's being cast. So you wait for the spell to be cast and everything else before you spend the point.
So I can attempt to unbind it. If I fail the unbind and I'm concerned about what's going to happen, I then burn that discipline point and bring that to a 2+, ignore the effect.
Yeah.
Cool.
The command trait, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target this general. In addition, subtract 1 from bravery characteristics of enemy units while they're within 3 of this general. It's pretty cool, like pretty much giving yourself lookout sir in combat. This is the artifact of power. Pick one of the Belair's weapons. They do not have to make save rolls against it.
This is awesome.
So pretty much your leech comes in, hits and wounds, and your opponent can't take saves. You take straight damage.
What?
Yep.
You completely ignore the save roll.
See, you got track.
Pick one of the melee weapons. Do not make a save roll for attacks made from this weapon, and wounds inflicted by that weapon cannot be negated when they're allocated to the model. So,
and then the wounds can be healed later in battle, though. But so Gotrek just ignore Gotrek's 3-up.
Okay, so it's still Morathi still can only take 3 damage in a turn. We're not. Yeah. So. Wow.
But it can kill Gotrek.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So your leech comes in, charges, pokes him, then you say bye-bye Gotrek.
Cool. I just want to go back for a second and go back to the Eldritch Nulls. This came up in the Hallowheart discussions when Cities of Sigmar came out, and I just want to pull out some wording just in case anyone gets confused around this, because in the older editions of Age of Sigmar, I believe there is a Stormcast Chamber, and there might be a couple of units out there who ignore the effects of spells. And that's both good and bad spells. So you roll a Mystic Shield on a unit and you've got to roll a dice. Because of the wording where it says you can roll the dice, that means it's optional. So if you try to cast a buff spell or you cast Mystic Shield on your own unit, you're not forced to roll the 5-up. That's an optional thing. So just in case anyone gets confused on the language or anyone tries to make you do it on your own types of spells for yourself, it is an optional thing, just FYI.
But yeah, I rate this one. I think it's good. It has an answer to when the meta changes to heavy spellcasting. Like, for example, your grot list, for example, Anthony, this pretty much shuts down all your endless spell shenanigans.
On a 2+.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have dropped a lot of my endless spell damage dealing. Yeah.
But like, for example, like the Change Host, Skaven, like the Warp Lightning, you go, cool, ignore it. Like, it's quite huge.
Yeah, and obviously at the moment there is a lot of magic being thrown around the realms. If Zench gets a new book, who knows what that's going to do for the meta. But if you're playing in an army that has a lot of spell casting, and you guys mentioned a lot earlier that one of the weaknesses of this book is mortal wounds, there is a really strong way you can negate that should those mortal wounds come from spells or endless spells. So that's pretty rock solid.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah, I rate this one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. And then finally, the crematorians, the guys. I know a lot of people are very curious about our thoughts on this one. So, Matt, do you want to take this one away?
Yeah, mate. So this is probably one of the other ones that are right up there with Petrifix Elite. I really rate this one. It's a really good option for that mortal wound output. So their abilities, the immolation, this is the biggest part of the army. So you roll a dice each time a friendly crematorian's model is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon. Before the slain model is removed from play, add 1 to the roll if the slain model is a hero or monster. On a 5+, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the slain model. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So every time one of your models is slain, so Mortek Guard, for example, every time 1 wound gets through, they are doing a mortal wound back on a 5-up.
Mm-hmm.
Or a hero. You don't really want your heroes in this game dying, so you're not really going to throw them up the board to get that +1. But
if you find yourself in a position where your monster's surrounded or your hero's surrounded, you can throw that down, and on a 4+, you're dealing mortal wounds back.
So where these come into their own, right? So we haven't got to it yet. There is a model in this army that brings back dead models called the Harvester. So how it works, I'll read it out now because it really goes well with this army. So his ability is Bone Harvest. Roll a dice each time a model is slain within 3 inches of this model. On a 4+, you can pick one friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers unit within 6 inches of this model. If you do so, and the slain model had a wounds characteristic of 4 or less, you can heal 1 wound allocated to that unit. So on a 4+, if you have, say for example, you got a unit of 20 Mortek Guard, and you have a Harvester right up behind them, keeping them all within 3 inches of it, and your opponent starts killing your models. On a 5-up, they're putting out 1 mortal wound. Yep. On a 4+, that model's coming back.
Okay, so I lose a model. It does damage on a 5+. I then have an opportunity. Yep, does that mortal wound. For each slain model. So if I lose 10 dudes, I roll 10 dice, 5-ups, I'm doing damage. And then after I've done that damage, I roll another dice if I have that Harvester around in the buff range. And I can bring that particular model back on a 4+. So I'm doing damage, and then I may only lose half of those models on the law of average.
Yeah. So yeah, really good. Their command ability, can use it in the combat phase. And look, you do not apply the cover modifier to save rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by that crematorian's unit in that phase. So you're just picking a unit that's in cover and they're not getting a cover save. So yeah, situational, but can be good. But
it's got its place.
Yeah. Command trait. If this general is slain, you add 2 the immolation dice roll instead of 1. So on a 3+, they're doing that mortal wound, but in addition, it does D3 mortal wounds instead of 1. But once again, you don't want your heroes. Look, you're not sending your hero out the board to die and hopefully do a D3 mortal wounds on a 3-up.
And we've said before that our heroes aren't super tanky combat orientated heroes, so the likelihood of doing that is very much if you find yourself in that position, as opposed to that's my strategy of running heroes and monsters up the board looking for this to happen.
Yeah. Then the artifact of power, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 1 to the damage characteristic of that weapon, which is actually quite good, especially on the Liege Cavalos. He's normally damage 2, goes to damage 3. And then you've got your Soul Reaper or whatever. He's 2 damage as well, so goes to 3 damage. So having 3 damage weapons is bloody awesome. Yeah, so the Crematorians, I think there's a lot of... There's, you probably want to be running a lot of Mortek Guard because it's only when models are slain, obviously, if you want this to really work. And I think you need to be running those Harvesters alongside those Guard to
bring them back.
To bring them back, because you want them to die, but you also want them to come back, and you're wanting to chuck a few Bone Shapers in there to bring models back as well. But yeah, look, I think it's pretty exciting, sort of Legion, that one, faction, whatever you want to call it. I could really see myself taking it, and I think you could have a lot of fun with it. I think it's more of a fun list as opposed to the Petrifix Elite, where your opponent's just going to hit you and not kill anything. This one, they're going to kill stuff, but they're going to cop damage back.
So to probably summarize this particular point about the sub-allegiances, the Mortis are all right. Petrifix definitely is one of the strongest, if not the strongest. Our staunch lords, not really staunch lords, please don't hit me in the comment section. But the movement shenanigans in here is wonderful. Certainly a high pick for us. The Ivory Host, it's all right. A lot of redundancy, probably not the strongest build unless your meta requires it. The Null Myriad is definitely strong, especially with a lot of spells and endless spells being thrown around the table right now, and potentially if a return of Zench comes around, or who knows what Archeon's going to be bringing to the table, but potentially this is definitely a strong one. And then finally, our Crematorians are pretty good as well. So it's probably at least 3 to 4 that we would pick, as opposed to there's one auto pick.
Yeah, look, I think being able to pick 4 out of 6 is bloody awesome. Like, a lot of the books you always see, if they've got multiple options, as we said, you will only pick one, but you might only really have an option of picking 2 of those, maybe. But this one, you've got a really good option of picking at least 4 of them.
Yeah, and as Liam said really early on, is this is an army that you can really adapt to the meta. So should a magic heavy meta come about, you've got something to handle that. If you find the new General's Handbook when it comes out, maybe it has some movement shenanigans or requires a high movement, you can certainly adapt and modify not only your tactics but the meta to the changes of what might come in 6 months' time with the new General's Handbook. We just never know. So great flexibility. Could stay here for a long time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. So we talk sub-allegiances, we talk about the legions. I think now we can start talking about building lists. Now, again, context is that certain models will be certainly better under different legions, but we'll do our best to build out some really strong unit choices and kind of declare why. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about from a sub-allegiance point of view, or are we happy to move into lists?
No, that's good.
All righty.
Good.
So every army wouldn't be complete if they didn't choose some hero choices, and you guys have a whole bunch of hero choices. Are they all good, or are there certain units or roles that that you require? And I guess let's start brainstorming about hero choices. Liam, what's a first choice for you, and why would you take that hero?
Arkan the Black.
Okay.
Due to he knows all the spell lore, which is huge. Because he's a level 3 caster with +2 to cast. And also his movement's really good. His command ability is really good. And also he can bring back 3 wounds, or a model with 3 wounds, or even 24 of him. He has a large base. So if you just fly things there, he's staying at the back. He can just bring things back, just chilling at the back and doing his bit by buffing. And since a lot of the spells are quite easy to cast, he just guarantees gets them off, and then sometimes he makes it harder for your opponent to dispel. So yeah, I rate him as a hero. But yeah.
All right, so Arkan the Black, even though he's a unique hero choice, you can't give him an artifact, you can't give him a command trait. He's definitely worth his bang for buck.
In this list, 360 points, definitely worth it. He brings a lot to the table.
Absolutely. Look. In Legions of Nagash, and Matt, you'll probably agree with me. He was definitely out of the three Mortarchs. He was definitely the strongest one for his utility value. He's certainly not something you run up the board and try to deal massive damage like a Bloodthirster. But the utility of Arcan is incredible.
Manfred was better.
I mean,
No.
we all know Manfred was the best, but the utility value, Arcan was number one.
Can I leave now?
Liam.
Yep.
All right. So we got Arcan the Black.
leader.
Is he an auto? Is he an auto choose? Like, does every army have to leave home with this guy, or is he someone that you might leave behind for certain reasons?
I haven't picked him in any of my lists yet, but that's just because I never took him in any Legions in the Nagash list, so I've just never it's probably why I haven't put him in.
You didn't choose him in Legions of Nagash because you want to go off meta, and everyone in the meta was taking Arcan.
True.
So
yeah.
So
if you're looking for a high spellcaster and someone who's got really good movement, this is the man for you.
Yep.
And another thing as well, I talked about with the endless spells giving -1 to cast.
Mm-hmm.
So with him casting it, he's still at +1 to cast. Like, he's still got a buff from casting, even though he just casted an endless spell but debuffs him, but he still can get +1 to cast, which is still strong. Any buff to cast is helpful. So yeah.
So even if you didn't take that endless spell, like the fact that if you need to get spells off, this is the one. This person's the most reliable.
Yep. Also, they've changed his rules to +2 to dispelling as well, because dispelling is different to unbinding. So if there's endless spells on the board that you really need to go off, like that warp lightning, just go cool, take it off.
And there's not a lot of things in the game that increases the dispel. So there's a lot of unbinding benefits, but not very few dispels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's
his curse he used changed a little bit too.
It's not as potent.
You're not really having him there for Curse of Years, to be honest. You're having him here to cast the other spells, which is really important in the army. So
yeah.
Cool. Okay, so Arcan the Black, absolutely high value spellcaster, worth his points. Matt, what's someone that you're taking in your lists and why?
Liege Cavalos, just the basic one, not the named one. Mainly because most of the artifacts from the factions go on him quite well. Also, he's kind of our only decent hero in combat that can survive. Even still, he doesn't do a lot in combat, but he's quite decent. He also has a command ability that 12-inch bubble, start of command phase, you can give a unit +1 attacks. So quite good for Mortek Guard, taking him up from 2 to 3 attacks, or even Nagash. Like if you wanted to run Nagash and I ran a list the other night with Nagash and this guy in it. You can give Nagash +1 attacks. So, he's got high damage weapons that only, his sword only has 1 attack normally. So it goes to 2 attacks doing D6 damage. It's quite a good command ability. And also he's got good movement. He's got a great save, a 3-up base save, which goes to a 2-up in Petrifix. I just think he's probably one that I always will probably put in my army.
Okay. And out of curiosity, why would you go the non-unique one versus the unique version?
The command ability and command and artifact choice. Obviously, you can't give it to the name guy. The name guy is slightly better. He's a few more points. What is it? 20 more points?
20 more points.
Which is not much, but on the charge, the name guy gets an extra point of damage, and he also has another command ability. So he has the same command ability, but he also has a bonus one. But the problem with the name character too is he's Mortis Praetorian. So if you're going to take Petrifix Elite, he doesn't get the +1 save. So the name character will only be a 3-up save, and the basic dude, the Liege Cavalos, will be a 2-up save. So that's the other problem with the named guy. He can only have the Mortis Praetorian keyword.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're taking the Praetorian where the unique character is good. If we're going outside of that particular sub-allegiance, we start to lose some synergies on top of some of the other restrictions that come with a unique character.
Yeah. So it's probably worth noting that it's only him and Catacross that have their own, like that are locked to that sort of keyword. In the army.
And the guy with the scroll, but no one's ever going to use.
Oh, Vok Motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Yep.
Cool. All right. Any other hero choices, Liam? Another choice from yourself.
So since I'm taking Arkan, who's bringing back 3 models, like a Bone Shape would be nice to bring back another 3. But another one that I do rate is the Soul Mason, because his spell's really good. Rerolling wound rolls of 1, which is super helpful since some of the units wound on 3s or some of the units wound on 4, so just that nice reroll. And also he gets he's a level 2 caster, and also he gets to he has this ability where he can go past the rule of 1 of magic, where he can cast his spell twice.
Okay, so just to pause you there for a second in case someone got confused what you just said. You said he is a level 2, and what you're implying to there is that he can cast 2 spells. Is that correct?
Yes, he's a level 2 caster and level 2 unbinding. So he can
just to unpack that, level 2 means you can cast 2 spells and you can unbind 2 spells.
Yeah.
Yes.
His actual spells plus reroll ones to hit, not wound.
Oh, great. My bad. But still, reroll hit rolls of 1 is pretty good.
And in General's Handbook, we have a rule that's one of the many rules called the Rule of 1, which means, for example, I can only cast 1 Mystic Shield, 1 Arcane Bolt. But you're telling me that the Soul Mason overrides that rule and can cast the same spell twice.
So his rule, I can read it up for you. It says, at the end of your hero phase, roll a dice for this model. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, this model can attempt to cast Soul Guide, even if the casting attempt has already been made for that spell. So even if you fail, you can give it another go. On a 6, this model can attempt to cast Soul Guide D3 more times, even if a casting attempt has already been made for that spell in the same phase.
So if I cast 2 spells, if that Soul Mason casts 2 spells in the hero phase, are you saying that he gets an extra spell, or do I have to only cast one of those 2 and then go for a second attempt?
He gets an extra a chance at casting that 1 spell, the Soul Guide, which gives reroll 1s to hit. So if he's already cast 2 in his turn, or he's already had 2 attempts, etc., etc., this is at the end of the hero phase, so it doesn't affect sort of what happens in the hero phase as such. At the end of the hero phase, you roll that dice. If you roll a 6, he can attempt to cast that D3 more times. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many times he's cast that turn.
Great. So if an opponent unbinds the spell and you really wanted to get it off, you've got another chance to get it on.
Yep.
Awesome. So
and then there's artifacts for him where you can get pluses to cast and stuff, which are really cool. But here's another one that I rate. I'm not a fan of the legs in his model, but I'm changing it a bit. But yeah, that's all right. But that's another hero.
Whose legs that you like? You don't like the Soul Mason's legs?
I don't like the Soul Mason's legs of his chair. It looks like chicken legs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
But I'm making a flying base to make it look like a slan. Yeah. If you want to get closer to Matt's camera quickly, you can kind of see what I mean. But yeah.
Oh, hold up. Let me bring it up. All right. I feel like chicken tonight.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Soul Mason is good value. Definitely bring it in your army.
Yeah. It's a good buff piece.
The fact he's got 2 casts mean that he can cast his own spell, but it's the endless spells that he can cast that 1 endless spell and still do another spell. Whereas the other guys, you only got the one cast, and you're probably wanting to do other spells with them, because the spell lore in this book is really good.
Yeah.
I think the other hero too worth noting is the Soul Reaper. So he's only 120 points. He's not great, but he's good at doing certain things. He's a good little backboard protector.
Yes.
If you get deep strike by those There's 5
Harpies.
harpies, or what are the dudes you play with, Liam? The
Tree revs.
yeah, a unit of tree revs. He can go in and do a lot of damage to them. He's got 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. So possible 6 damage there. He's got 5 wounds with a 4-up save, which is a 3-up save in Petrifix. So he's not going to be easy to kill. But he can just run around the backboard, just taking off those threats if you need him. He's not a hero you're going to throw up the board to kill stuff, because he's just not gonna survive.
He's got the Khan Wraith rule where he can reroll hit rolls if there's 5 or more models. So as we said, with tree res being 5 model unit or harpies, he can just reroll hit rolls, and any 6s do 2 mortal wounds as well.
Yep. Yeah. And he can be just that hero that casts that endless spell that you need, and he, then you don't care if he's bound to that spell. Like, if you're not really worrying about that. So
yeah.
Who's going to talk about the big daddy of them all, Nagash? I don't
want to talk about him.
I played a game with him the other night, so I'll have a quick chat about him.
Because he is worth, if you're playing a traditional 2,000 point battle, he is almost 50% of your army. You're really looking at about 45% of your army. So is 45% investment in this force worth one character, and why?
Look, the only time you're going to take him is in Petrifix Elite. So he's got that 2-up save with his command ability. He's re-rolling 1s to save. Otherwise, you're not going to take an 880 point unit. It's really easy to look. He still dies easy. Like, I played Slanesh the other night, and he still died. Like, he's still going to die. So you got to.
You're not selling it.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not trying to sell it. I'm talking about him. If you want to take the Mortis Guard, he's going to throw off those wounds on a 2+ or whatever it is, and he's going to survive a lot longer. But that's a lot of points, a big point sink into something. Look, in combat, he's not great. He does all right, but you're not gonna wipe out a Keeper of Secrets in 1 turn of combat. He's where his strengths lie, obviously, are the spell casting. When he's got 8 spells to cast, and he can cast every spell in the book, it's really good. There's I will talk about it now. There's one of the spells which actually work really well with him, and it's actually named after him, Protection of Nagash. So if you want, it's a 5-up, goes off on a 5-up, and at any time during your turn to your next hero phase, if he takes a wound and he doesn't save it, you remove that model. You remove him from the board, and you set him up anywhere on the board 9 inches away from enemy models. So
teleporting Nagash.
Teleporting Nagash. So if you set him up next to terrain and take the mortal wounds to give him reroll 1s to hit or whatever it is, you can deep strike him into your opponent's board first turn, 9 inches away, and then just cast all these spells at your opponent.
I don't know if I'm ready for a deep striking Nagash. Like, yeah. I don't know if I'm ready for that. That's a scary thought. Holy wow.
There's some cheeky things you can do. So you could also cast an endless spell next to him and try and hurt himself, so he's deep striking across the board. Oh no, sorry, you got to cast endless spells at the start of the turn, so that won't work. But yeah, if you take damage on him, you can throw him across the board. Same thing if someone charges you and they do mortal wounds on the charge, he just pops off the board and buggers off, and then that unit's just stuck there in the middle of nowhere with nothing to fight.
He can teleport out of combat?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's something that's not. So just to pause for a second, that's something that's not very common. Traditionally, if you are locked in combat, you cannot teleport or move outside of a retreat. So the fact that he can teleport out of combat is pretty crazy. So a lot harder for your opponent to lock him into combat and just, through attrition and dice, just take down the big guy.
So important to note that this spell is can be cast by any spellcaster in our book, but I'm just saying for him it's actually quite good. He also, his abilities, so obviously his command ability is not as good as what it would be in any other army. So ignoring battle shock test doesn't matter. But you're re-rolling those ones to hit, which is really good, and that's board wide. He also heals 5 units on the board, 3 wounds every turn, every hero phase. So board wide, he's just healing 3 wounds to any, up to 5 units.
Is that just healing, or is that bringing back from the dead as well?
And bringing back.
Okay, so if I've got 1 wound units, I can bring them back. Your Mortex Guard. If I've got models with 2 or 3, I can bring them back. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And
so
is Nagash still an 8 spellcaster?
He is. Yeah, that hasn't changed.
So if you're playing in the realms, absolutely, you've got all. You can have 8 spells to cast. If you're not playing in the realms, is there enough spells available to him that he can cast those full 8?
Oh yeah, because he knows all the law. He knows the whole spell lore of this book. So there's 6 spells just there, and they're actually all pretty good spells. They all have their place. So yeah, there's 6 gone already. And then, and the other cool thing about him too now, he can cast Arcane Bolt 8 times if you wanted to.
What? What? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcane and Nagash both have this.
Yeah,
is it just Arcane Bolt, or can they do that Mystic Shield, or?
Where is it? I think it's Mystic Shield too, isn't it?
Yeah, Mystic Shield too.
So you can cast 8 Mystic Shields if you want to.
Yeah.
I love how you say that. That's just like, yeah, of course he can. I mean, he's the Lord of Death. He is a god. If he wants to cast more than 1 Mystic Shield, who am I to deny him?
Yeah.
Well, Rule of 1 did for a while, but not anymore.
No.
So if you've got that Keeper of Secrets within range, you want to just mortal wound it off the board, just do a heap of Arcane Bolts.
Or teleport and get away from it. So you've got a whole range of versatility. But as we know, it is a big point investment, especially if you start kind of bringing in the Mortis Guard to act as a screen or bodyguards. We're now that investment is well above half of your army if you're playing in a traditional 2,000 point battle. So
and then the other big issue I saw with him in my game is you're missing out on those discipline points. So he's only given you 1. Yeah. And then you're only getting, and you're not taking many heroes in an army with him in it because you just don't have the points. So, you might only have 2 other heroes. So you're only getting 3 from the heroes. You're not going to have enough points for a battalion. So you're only rolling dice for the amount of units. So yeah, and discipline points are really valuable. But in saying that, there's another spell he can cast which gets you D3 extra, but it's not a guarantee, and it might only be 1. So taking him in an army he can be really good, but it really limits your options.
Sounds like no different to Legions of Nagash. However, in this
points.
Pardon?
He's more points too now. So
yeah, but what I'm hearing though is there's potentially some more versatility. You certainly can't teleport Nagash in Legions of Nagash. There's certainly not as many ways to get the most out of this essentially 900 point model. So if you're going to do that, learn how to make the most of the rest of your points.
Well, another thing as well, just to note, Matt, is he doesn't know all the spells from Death Wizards anymore.
Yeah, that's changed.
So he used to be able to, the thing that made him really cool in Legion of Nagash, for example, is you have your necromancers, all your cheap heroes that know spells, be surrounding him, and he would know them, but now he doesn't do that anymore, which is kind of but then they've kind of fixed it in Bonereapers, saying, he knows the whole spell lore, so I don't know if they might change that in Legions of Nagash in the future.
Okay, so it's good to know that if you're coming over from Legions of Nagash, you don't have to go out and buy all of the cheap heroes to do the same trick. That's a really good call, Liam. Really good call out.
So he's almost become unplayable in Legions of Nagash because of this book. He's got a points increase. He doesn't know all the spells of Death Wizards. So he's I don't know. I think he's nearly unplayable. He's pretty much unplayable in Legions of Nagash now. Yeah.
Okay. Sadly.
Yeah.
What about the other heroes? So we've got a couple left. We have the Master of the Bone Tie. We've got the Soul Reaper and I don't think we've talked about the Bone Shaper either. Oh, and
So-
we also haven't talked about Catacross as well. So,
Yeah. Well,
So
you go,
just-
Liam.
quickly with Bone Shaper, it is an auto include, but if you're taking things like Arcane and stuff already, they're already doing their job already. But if you really need to heal 6 wounds or like 6 models, then you add in the Bone Shaper. If that makes sense, or you spam the Bone Shaper. Because he brings back 3
the choice
wounds.
is Bone Shaper or Arcane in most situations. It's rare
Or
that
you
you'll take both.
Or you can take both if you want to abuse that rule of healing 3. But as we already talked about, this army is so durable that sometimes you just need to heal 3. But if you need to heal 6 and you really want to do that trick, go for it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. I myself are thinking 1's enough kind of thing, and add in something like a Soulmates in to buff up the combat ability more. Because they're already doing the durable game quite well. But Bone Shapers are really good. They're not good in combat, straight up. They actually got a pretty good save. They got a 4-up save. So with Petrifix Elite, it goes to a 3-up for a support character. Level 1 caster. And its spell is pretty much casting value 5. Pick 1 enemy unit, roll 1 dice. For each mortal from that unit that is within 18 inches of the caster, visible to them. For each 6, that's a mortal wound. It's just like a small horde killer.
Yeah.
But it's similar to the Gaunt Summoner in a way, but it's a 6-up, not a 4-up. And then his ability, though, is units within 6 inches of this model can heal 3 wounds, which is kind of not as good as Arcane, but can do it wholly even 24. So, yeah, I rate him, but like Arcane's pretty much doing the job better, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
obviously, if you're going to double down, you can take both. Otherwise, it's Bone Shaper or Arcane, unless you want to double down.
Double down, yeah.
And then Catacross. So this
You take it.
Yeah, he's the reason.
It's 1/4 of your army if you're playing 2K. Sell me on this idea.
Oh, look, he actually is really good. So we'll just look at his baseline stats. He's got 20 wounds. He's only a 4-inch move, but for 1 discipline point, that's 7-inch. He gets 3 discipline points every battle round, so you can make him 7-inch, which is quite good. He's a 3-up save. He's one of his command abilities makes everything +1 save within range of him, so he's really a 2-up save for another discipline point, and 10 bravery, which we don't care about.
Yeah.
But he has a really cool way that he works. So the more wounds he takes, the stronger he gets in combat. But he loses abilities. So we'll go through his abilities because he's got a lot, and it's worth noting what they all do. So he has where are they? The companion. We'll go through the companion abilities. So the Spy Master, once per turn, you can roll a dice when your opponent receives a command point. If you do so on a 4+, that command point is lost. So those armies that really rely on that extra 1 point, so even say Legions and a Gash, for example, they need that 1 point to bring back a dead unit. On a 4+, that's just gone. It says once per turn, so if your opponent has the Ether Quartz Brooch and gets that point back in your turn, you can roll that 4-up and it stops them from getting it back. So that's a pretty good ability in itself. The Scroll Bearer, at the start of your hero phase, you pick 1 enemy unit is on the battlefield until your next hero phase. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit that target friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units. You can just make anything on the board, whatever a threat, a neg 1 to hit. So Warplock Jezzails, neg 1 to hit. Whatever's coming at you into combat, just make it neg 1 to hit.
Great for some of those models that activate an ability on a 6, 6+ especially. There's some older War Scrolls that aren't the unmodified. So by applying that negative to hit, all of a sudden you might deactivate the mortal wound on a 6. So pretty good.
Yeah, and if you can combine it with if you get your Bone Tithe Nexus to do that neg 1 to hit, you can make a unit neg 2 to hit quite easily.
With my grots, by the way, back in the day, a -2 drives people insane. So if you're able to bring that down, especially that combo with the Nexus, your opponent's gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot in my Legions army. the Prime Necrophorus, I think that's how you spell it. So when you use the model's Supreme Lord of Bone Reapers Legion's command ability, so his command ability is a 18-inch bubble. When this guy's still alive, it's a 36-inch bubble. So his command ability, we'll talk about that now. It adds, where is it? The +1 to save and +1 to hit. +1 to hit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has a bubble of +1 to hit and +1 to save with this guy still alive on his base, 36-inch bubble. So if you're playing him in the middle, you run him up the middle, most of the board's pretty much covered by his +1 to hit, +1 to save ability. So you're pretty much getting, Petrifix Elite with this guy on the board, and you're pretty much getting what was the other one that gave you +1 to hit? The Ivory Host. So from one model, you're getting almost those two factions in one model. He also has the same command ability that the Liege Cavalos has, the Holy within 12 inches. A unit gets +1 attacks. And then he has a really weird wounds suffered ability. So they've actually had to change this from what was written in the book. So it had 0 to 1. He has all his companions. In the book, it then says 1 to 3. So which have now changed from 2 to 3. Otherwise,
and you find that in the FAQs on the Games Workshop website.
Yes.
Yep. So
So it was obviously an oversight when they wrote the book. So then each time you go down the list, he loses one of his companions. So he loses one of those companion abilities. But once he gets down, so he has a weapon, the Inder Cart. When he's no wounds suffered, it's got 1 attack, and by the time he gets 13 wounds suffered, it goes up to 4 attacks. It's threes to hit, 3s to wound. It's neg 3 rend and 3 damage. So it's quite good. He's also got a shield called the Shield Immortus. It doesn't get any attacks until he's got to the last bracket, which is 13 plus wounds. It goes to 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage. But it also has a special ability that does, if you roll a 6 to hit, it does 2 mortal wounds in addition to its damage. So look, he has, and then his companions all have attacks, which you lose obviously as he takes wounds. But he's a very involved model. There's a lot of abilities that you'd need to play him a few times to remember them all. But this is why I was saying the Mortis Praetorian army, you would only take it really if you're taking this guy, because this then makes you have pretty much 2 other of the sub factions in the one faction. So he's then a 2-up save with 20 wounds. Like, he's going to be quite hard to kill.
By the way, I did want to pull that back for a second. So there are very, 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 very few things in the game that has 20 wounds. Archaon is one of those. Magma Dragon is another. There's probably less than 5 models in the entire range of 800 War Scrolls that has a 20 wounds. So your opponent may underestimate. It's quite a large base size, which looks very slow, but boy oh boy, can it take a bunch of damage.
Yeah. And you sometimes you probably want him to be taking damage as well, just so he gets, like, towards later on in the game, I suppose, you want him to be damaged so he can start killing stuff off. Early game, you want him alive so he's doing all those buffs to your army and stopping your opponent from getting all their extra stuff. But yeah, look, I really want to take him. I really want to paint the model up. He's such an awesome looking diorama. It's one of the best models, one of the best diorama sort of models I've seen Games Workshop release. So I'm really excited to just get the model and paint it up, to be honest.
Yeah, cool. So we've heard the pros and cons of taking Catacross. Any other heroes that we haven't acknowledged, or are they hot garbage?
The guy with the scroll.
We haven't talked about the bone-tied master.
We're not talking about him, so we're going to skip him. Anyway, so let's talk about something else.
No. We're in an elevator. We're going up to the 7th floor. Give me those 3 lines to explain why I'm not taking the Master of the Bone Tie. Liam.
It's a waste of points.
Why? Tell me why. Articulate the lack of value in this War Scroll.
Let's bring it on. Okay, so first things first, right? He has a 6-up save. Okay,
Five up.
Is it 5 up? Oh yeah, it's 5 up save. Right, 5 up save, 6 wounds. He does nothing in combat really. His spell thing. So if he gets charged, you select a unit, enemy unit on a 5 up. That unit can't attack him. Right, so he just pulls up his piece of paper, says you can attack me. His spell though goes off on an 8, and you select an enemy unit within 1 inch. You can expand this to a spell portal if you want to. On a 5 up, that model is slain. Cool. But first things first is you need a casting value of 8.
So it's a high cast. So we don't like it 'cause it's a high cast.
He needs to be in combat.
He needs to be in combat. Unless you want to invest points in spell portal. So he needs to survive that.
So outside of the investment of
spell portal does not work.
FAQ'd just then saying it does work.
Oh, okay. Because it says the range of this spell cannot be modified in the.
It literally it got FAQ'd, but it can.
But you'd measure that small threat range from the base of the spell portal.
Spell portal.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So it's a high cast value. It's very niche in regards to where to cast. Has a high cast, so a very high armor save. So it's very likely if you don't take the spell portal, you'll get slain in combat.
Yep. So it's just like he's 6 wounds, 5 up save. If you take that the lead gives him +1 save, that's 4 up. But still, if a hero's going into him, it's probably got Rend 1 or Rend 2. It's going to probably kill him, unless you roll a 5 up to make them not fight. So yeah, I honestly don't rate him. He's not really worth. How many points is he at the moment?
180.
Yeah. I would much rather spend that points in a unit of Death Riders
Or a Soul Mason.
Or a Soul Mason.
And I think some of the things you notice very quickly is that there's a lot of expensive models in this range because it is more of an elite force. So because of that, every point is going to be super valuable, and to drop almost 200 points on a character that's very situational. If you're putting the Umbral Spell Portal in there, you're now at 250 points in the current edition. Is it worth the value? I'm hearing no. But if you guys have any comments and find it valuable, put it in the comment section. I want to hear how you're using it. But right now, not valuable.
Yeah, I find it funny. But he was in the Bone Type box, and everyone wanted that Bone Type box because he was a cool. He's a cool character. I'm going to paint him. He's really cool looking, but I won't be playing him in games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a big argument going about with the battalion that he's a part of in that box.
It's not worth it still.
Well, I don't even think the battalion can be taken. But anyway, the battalion gives. So all
does it have a
got
points
a points
value? Then
yes,
it counts.
But it says this is from October, and then this book here says points from November. So,
all right, let's pause the battalion talk until we get to battalions.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Any other heroes? I think we've acknowledged all of them.
That's it. Cool.
So we've heard there's a couple of really strong standouts. Certainly the Soul Mason, certainly Arcane the Black, Nagash in certain builds. Kavalos, certainly there's some value in there. Some heroes not as good. Cool. Now that we've picked our I'm trying to timestamp it. People always whinge that I don't timestamp. But now that we've picked our leaders, it's now important to pick our battle line. So you have 2 battle line choices. There's no, unlike other books where you can unlock battle line with certain allegiances or certain heroes, you just have literally 2 battle line choices. You have your Kavalos Death Riders, which come in units of 5 up to 15, and there is a massive regiments discount, so you can take the full 15 at a discounted price. Or you've got your Mortek Guard, same kind of deal. Take them in units of 10 up to 40, and they get a massive regiments discount. So I guess the question is, which ones are better? Do you take both? I know, for example, the Mortek Guard I think come with swords or spears. So which one are the better choices in the weapon kit out? And are you taking large units versus small units? So let's start with the Mortek Guard, the one that people are building. What do we think of these guys' battle line? How do we build them out? How do we kit them out? Liam.
I was going to say Matt. But,
Matt.
yeah.
That's why I said. That's exactly what I said.
I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy to be able to talk to Death Riders because there's a particular thing I like about them. So
yeah, that's what I said. There must be some issues coming through my streaming software. So Matt, Mortek Guard. What are your thoughts? Where are we at with these guys?
Look, these are freaking amazing. For Battleline choice, these have got to be probably nearly the best Battleline in the game, to be honest.
Why?
Well, they're a 4-up save. They're in combat. They get that command ability. They can their own command ability called Shield Wall. You can re-roll save rolls for attacks that target that unit till the end of the combat phase. So they're a 4-up re-rolling. But as we've already spoken about, take them in Petrifex or even take them with Catacross, and then they are 3-up re-rolling. So stuff like the new books like More Tribes with Ogres, they got no rend, normal gluttons, or whatever you want to call them. Anything with no rend against these dudes are just not going to do anything. Like the numbers, and the other thing is, I think you want to take them in units of, I think the sweet spot with them is 20. I think 10's not bad. 10 will actually, on averages, 10 will withstand a unit of 6 Ogre Bulls, like, easily. Like, they just bounce off them. But
is that just under Petrifix, or are we talking about generically across the board?
That's under Petrifix and with Catacross, but even still with a 4-up save re-rolling, like, that's a lot of attacks that they're stopping coming through if you don't have any rend.
They're almost Phoenix Guard-like.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, there's spells, so you can cast a spell on them to ignore mortal wounds on a 5-up. Yeah. I like to take them in units of 20. I think that's the sweet spot because they're quite expensive. They're 130 points, so a unit of 20 is 260 points. Once you start going bigger, I don't know. I think it's the unit. You don't need that many, I don't think. Like, I just think the extra models are just redundant.
It's kind of like the argument where people are running like 9 Kurnoff Scythes, like 6 is enough.
Yeah.
9's too many. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that argument.
With the massive Horde Regiment discount benefits, so is the 40 models a trap? Is that too big?
Possibly. Look. The argument is I think it's only like 40 points to go from
50 points.
Yeah, from 30 to 40, which is bloody amazing when they're 130 points. But 40 models is that means then you're having to go to 30 in the first place, which I don't think you need to do, and then you go on to 40. So you're up to, what are they, 400 points?
It's 440 if you take the 40.
Yeah, so that's a lot of points for a Battleline unit.
For one Battleline, you've still got to choose another 2.
Yeah, so I think units of 20 is where their sweet spot's at. They're actually quite good in combat, so I arm all mine with blades.
Why?
They got the same stats. They both hit on 3s, both wound on 4s. They have 1 less inch reach. The main difference is they have 1 rend and the spears don't. I just think rend in this game is quite invaluable. And they also have an ability on a natural 6 to hit. Natural 6. The hit explodes. You get 2 hits. So, look, if you're running units of 20. A line of two lines of 10 is not a very big footprint, and it is very easy to have, and you're going to get 2 rows of combat. So you don't need...
They're 25 mil bases, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So
you really don't need spears, yeah. In a big unit, look, I'd say, go spears. But I always had this argument with Legions and Nagash, for example, spears over swords. Everyone said the spears were better, but swords... when it came to gameplay, was so much better in that army because you got the +1 to hit. This one's different. Like, you're not getting that +1 to hit. You're just getting that extra point of rend.
So you're trading range versus rend. So if you want the 2-inch range, you're going the spears, which might be good for the 30 and 40 unit blocks, but consistency and the rend 10 to 20 is probably in that sword spot.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, as I say, like the footprint of 20 models, you would never need spears. By the time you pile in, you never need spears at a unit of 20. So
not on 25 mil bases.
No, and as I said earlier, you don't really want to run a unit of 40 of them. So, look, I don't see the point of building them with spears. They do look cool with spears. Don't get me wrong. From a model perspective, they look great with spears. But yeah, so they also have 1 in every 10 models is a Necrophorus. So add 1 to run and charge rolls for that unit. So that's the dude with the banner. And then they also have the option of 1 in every 10 models has a Soul Cleaver Great Blade. You would not. There is no reason why you would not take this. It's 2 attacks, 3s and 3s instead of 4s, and it's 1 rend, 1 damage. So it's +1 to wound.
It doesn't explode.
It doesn't explode, but I don't think that 1 in 6 chance of it exploding anyway, or 1 in 3 chance.
Honestly, I've added them into my units because I think it looks cool.
Yeah. Oh, look, it is what it is. So for example, if you're taking them in Petrifix Elite, they're a 3-up save. You can spend the discipline point to make them 2 rend with the swords. So they're 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, 2 rend, 1 damage, and you're re-rolling their fail. They're not failed. You're just re-rolling their saves. So for a Battleline unit, they are bloody amazing for what they can do.
All right. Well, we've heard the sales pitch from Matt on why you should take the Mortek Guard. And I'm sure, there's nothing wrong with building a 30 or a 40-man unit with swords. I guess the likelihood of getting 30 to 40 people into combat is certainly a lot harder, which is why the recommendation is to sit in that 10 or 20 spot. However, if you come up against a block of, say, 60 grots, then potentially, you will get all 40 in. So I guess curious to hear everyone else's thoughts on why they would go higher or lower. Always curious on builds. But Liam, your counterattack on why the Death Riders are the much superior Battleline choice. So we've heard from Matt. Let's hear from Liam.
Just want to clarify, they are not the superior ones, but what I am going to sell you is that you should have a unit of 5 at least.
Oh, this is 2-pack versus Biggie Smalls, man. You can't go with your Mortek Guard. Your Biggie Smalls, man. You got to pop some caps from Mortek Guard. Tell us why the Death Riders are the OG Battleline unit in this army.
Okay, so when I get started, I just want to clarify one thing. Most people who have probably heard me on episodes before know that I talk about tree revs so much because I think they're a great toolbox unit. This unit fills that role so well. Because they're movement 12, you can make them movement 15, which is freaking fast. They get +1 to their charge rolls as well and run. So if someone has left a unit behind in their back lines, you're going to run around and hit that unit and get that objective at the back line. Hands down. And they're tough as nails. They got shields and everything, so you can make them ignore stuff. Their command ability, after they charge, you can pick one enemy unit in 1 inch, roll the number of dice equal to the number of models in this unit. For each 5-up, that enemy suffers a mortal wound. So you pretty much can do 1 or 2 mortal wounds to them straight up. And then you got that extra damage. They're 3 wounds each with a 4-up save. Bravery 10, but we don't care because we don't take Battle Shock. We don't do that here. Blades and spears, same range and stuff and same hitting and wounding. But instead of 2 attacks each, they got 3 attacks. And then the blade has -1, 1 damage. And then they got the hooves and teeth, which are 2 attacks, 4s and 3s. Best, can I just say strong mounts because no mount wounds on 3s. Just want to clarify that.
Even my horse mounts are hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s. They always do more damage than the unit that's on top of it. So the fact that your mounts have a 3 to hit is pretty uncanny. These are
3s to wound, 4s to hit.
3s to wound. So it's crazy.
But the one thing as well is so they also explode. But however, this is the interesting thing. So if unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the unit's blades and spears on a 6, it scores 2 hits instead of 1. Make a wound roll and save roll for each hit. For each attack made with the spears, so 2 hits are scored on a 5-up instead of a 6. So when they're charging, they're doing it on 5s. And then with the spell that makes it a 5 and that makes it a 4. So they're pretty much when they get into combat on the charge with that spell, 50% of them, those attacks are generating new attacks and they're hitting on 2s, most likely, if you get all the boss off. So the spears, unpopular opinion, spears are actually great on these guys because they're going to outweigh with dice. Also, they look cool. And most people who are leaving those units in the backlines are generally cheap, crappy units with a crap armor save, so the spears are going to go through them. And also 2-inch range and a cav base is super helpful that all of them are going to be in.
And also, Petrifix Elite, you got the 1 rend anyway.
Yeah, but also as well as with a command ability, they get to pile in 6 inches, so even the spears are going to get all of them in as well.
Yeah, so, and by the way, just what Mayor said, obviously the Petrifix Rend 1 also applies to the swords in the Mortek Guard. So all of a sudden, those swords are -2 Rend.
Which is pretty sure that Petrifix Elite's hooves and stuff also get that as well. So even the mounts get Rend.
Yeah. So there's Rend for days. So Rend 2 Battleline is pretty brutal on 25 mil bases. You will tear your opponent a new one.
But Death Striders, I rate for a Battleline toolbox unit, especially because near the late game where someone's left that objective open, they are going to fulfill that job of grabbing that objective.
Same question I asked Matt was, do you take them in a large block, a small block, a middle block? What's a good average for these guys?
Okay, 5 is great. 10 will be amazing. 15 is a waste. Okay. 15 is a hardcore waste.
And Matt, you go on. Sorry, you go on.
Because a famous move that we call here in Australia / Sydney is a Dan Brewer move where you can easily get 2.9 tagged, where someone can just pile in and tag your units, so you're pretty much stuck in combat, and then you've just wasted that, so then you have to retreat out because these guys are good on the charge. 15 is easy to do that for your opponent. 5 is kind of hard. 10 is a little bit easy, but 15 is just like you're just telling your opponent to tag me. So 15 is such a large footprint that you can easily get stuck into combat where you don't want to be.
So to tag, you're charging a one particular unit and then using the pile in or the charge to tag another unit just outside of the 3-inch, but still in 3-inch, just enough that
2.9.
Yeah, but like the point is that you're locking them in combat and making them either retreat or be piled in towards this particular unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some people may not know what that strategy is. So, it's a good call. It's a good call out. And Mayor, you're someone who runs a lot of Black Knights in their Legions and Nagash. Do you see the same type of value in like a large block of Death Riders like your Black Knights?
The Black Knights are way better than these guys. I don't mind these guys, but they're very expensive, and their damage output isn't great. I think 5 to 10 is great. If you want 15 on the board, you're better off just doing 3 units of 5 or a unit of 10 and 1 unit of 5, because then you can use their command ability more often. You're getting the more chances of mortal wounds from the command ability if you've got more units of them. Whereas if you've got a unit of 15, you only got that one chance to do it. For 180 points, I think they are. They're quite expensive for a battle line.
But they're so fast.
They are. Especially when your guard are only 4-inch move, these dudes are 12. Makes you kind of nearly need to have them in your list.
And then we put them in that Tempest Eye version. What's it called, Liam? The pluses to move with
Staunch Lords.
That's right, our Staunch Lords, not the real Staunch Lords. Please don't. But
Staliac Lords. Yeah.
The Staliac Lords who get additional to move, all of a sudden that 12 becomes 15, and holy wow. That is a lot of, and it can run and charge, right?
Charge,
yeah.
Run and charge, and retreat.
So straight away, you've got 15-inch move. You can run and charge. You can retreat and charge. That is a very fast army that is securing objectives, harassing your opponent, potentially pinning them in.
And three wounds, like a unit of 5. There's still 15 wounds worth.
Yeah.
So they're hard to get through.
And this might be the type of army that you also want to have like Arcane the Black in, because he's got a lot of movement that he can follow them along the board, where maybe some of those smaller models who aren't as fast may struggle to keep up with your Death Riders.
Yep.
So overall, I'm hearing Mortek Guard, Death Riders, potentially go more Mortek Guard than your Death Riders, but I think you've got some good choices either way, depending on which particular benefit you want to tap into.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Sweet. We've got one artillery choice, which is the Crawler, the Mortek Crawler, aka the Screaming Skull Catapult 2.0. Do we like our only official shooting attack or shooting phase? I know a lot of Death players are cheering and wooing. Do we take them? Do we just take one? Thoughts on this?
I'll go first. I know I'll let Liam talk after because I know he likes them, but I think they got their place, but I don't like it, to be honest. Their damage is great. Yeah, 3 attacks, 2s and 3s to hit, and damage 5. Good against low saved armies, so a 5-up save army, 6-up save army. But once you get the 4-up save armies, you're not getting a lot of damage through a lot of the time. There's no rend on this at all. And then I just find the 2 special ability shots, I find them really, really weird and really hard to actually get off. So the Cauldron of Torment, you don't use your normal attack. You use this instead. You pick one enemy unit that is in range of the attack and roll 1 dice for each model in the target unit. Add the modifier for the Cauldron of Torment shown on the damage table above to each roll. If the result is equal to or greater than the unmodified bravery characteristic of the target unit, 1 model from that unit is slain.
Just one.
Just one. So there's not a lot of stuff that I can see that's under a bravery 6. I know it's equal to, but most things in this army are getting higher bravery each time it comes out. So your
orcs, your cities of Sigmar, your grots, those types of things that are sitting under bravery 6. But majority of things are in that 7+ bracket.
Maybe Skaven. So anything that's a 7-up bravery, that ability is useless. But yeah, it could be good against certain armies, but it's very situational. And then the other ability, which is an amazing ability, but I don't like the fact that. So I'll tell you, I'll go through how it works. So do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with Cursed Steel. Instead, you pick one enemy model that is in range of the attack and roll 2d6. Add the modifier for Cursed Steel shown on the damage table above to the roll. If the result is equal to or greater than the wounds characteristic of that unit, it is slain. So you roll 2d6, and when this model is not injured, you're -3 off that roll. So average of 2d6 is what, 7? So you're -3 off that. So you're
4?
rolling an average of 4. Yeah.
Okay.
And you need to roll equal to or more than the damage, the wounds characteristic of that model to kill it. So yes, it is an awesome character sniping ability, but for once per game ability that at the start on an average you're only rolling a 4, I don't like it.
Who has to be wounded, the character or the catapult?
No, the catapult. So once the catapult has taken 10+ wounds, when it's only got 12 wounds, it gets +3 to this roll.
Okay, so basically when it's on the fringes of death, it gets +3 to the roll. On the law of average, the 2+, so our 2 dice, we're averaging a 7 minus the 3 until we hit the 10 wounds suffered.
Yeah.
It is very unlikely.
It does go down. So once you get the first bracket, which is 3 to 4 wounds, it goes to -1. 5 to 7 wounds, it's no minus, and then 8 to 9, it's +1. But then you're probably going to be in combat if you're taking wounds, so you're not going to be able to shoot that model either. Like you're not going to be able to shoot a hero off the board. And if you're wanting to snipe a hero, you want the wounds on this model to guarantee it, and it's probably not going to happen till turn 2, turn 3, later in the game, when that by then it probably doesn't matter so much killing that hero. You're probably wanting to kill other stuff by then. Okay. You want to kill heroes. I find you want to try and kill heroes early on in the game. So yeah, look, I just think its special abilities aren't great. They're very situational.
So you're not sold.
I'm not sold on it for the 200 points. I think 1 would be all right, but if you start taking more, you're adding up.
I know people in the chat and even Liam. When I'm seeing lists about using the crawlers, they're going minimum 2. Some people are going 3. I'd love to hear what Liam has to say in regards to. So curious that you think it's not very good for certain reasons. Liam, why are you thinking that this is a good investment of 200 points and more if you take more?
Okay, so I just want to clarify. I think it's good, but it's not amazing in the book. Like, it's a great unit, just want to clarify. But this thing has so many cool tools in it. Due to one, it is got a 43-inch threat range because you can give it +3 move. So you're pretty much making characters backboard the crap out of it. And then, so one thing is, so pretty much the rule is when you're bringing this unit is 1 is a waste. You'd never run 1. You run 2 or 3 at best. 2 is a sweet spot. 3 is that if you're running 4, don't even bother.
3 is a bit overkill though, wouldn't you think?
3 is like if you really want to, if you really enjoy the shooting phase, go for it. If you're really into shooting, but 2's perfect. 2's nice. But the one thing, so you're thinking about sniping characters, Matt. I'm thinking about taking out important models of that unit or destroying coherency. You pretty much imagine your opponent just lined up a whole elite unit, then you just pick one model, and then you go, cool, roll it. And as you said, average wound thing is a 7. And if you roll a 7, -3, most of those kind of things are a 4 wound. You just take that model out, and then you don't even charge them to get them back into coherency. Battle shock phase, that unit now, half that unit's gone just from that one shot. So instead of just taking out just one thing of 4, you've actually taken out more than like 12 wounds just from that one shot.
So you're thinking so you're not going the character sniping route. You're going.
You can character snipe, but then you want to take damage for that. But if you want most, and this really sucks to say, but most really low level players just string out models, and you just take full advantage of that. Just cool, take that at coherency, and then take out half that unit.
So what you're referring to here is that at the end of the battle shock phase, if you can't keep coherency, so in turn 1, turn 2, when there's no combat and I can't use a pile in to bring back coherency, if you're going to shoot off some models, what you're saying is that I'm going to lose a whole bunch of my models because I'm not
just on that one coherency.
Shot. And even a battle shock of inspiring presence won't help me in this situation.
Yeah.
They do suffer too from their minimum range of shooting. So if you've got a mobile enemy that is deep striking or whatever, and they get within 6 inches of this model, well, if they're in combat with it, it can't shoot because it's got a minimum 6-inch range. Yep. So if a unit's in combat with it, it's just there's 200 points of unit that you can't use because it's just stuck.
So you want to make sure you're screening it. If you've got an opponent who's going to deep strike you or can't teleport or tunnel or whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're screening them so they can't get within 6. Otherwise, you are literally stopping those catapults from shooting.
Yeah, so that ends up costing even more points too.
I have it. Yeah, I find the Mortar Guard. You just leave a Mortar Guard nearby, and the Mortar Guard will just tune whatever comes into it.
That's a good hint for players is to have a screen and maybe a Mortec Guard. And that might be the use of 30 or 40 Mortec Guard. Who knows? But
not even 30. I had 10, and they wiped out the threat.
So yeah. The other thing I don't like. I can see they're really good. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't rate shooting stuff as much either because when you look at a game, say for example, we've got a five battle round game. A shooting unit is only going to get 5 rounds of shooting at max, whereas combat units can get a maximum of 10 rounds of combat. So for that 200 points, you're getting a lot more out of combat units. I always just see that as, and if you fail 1 or 2 rounds of your shooting, that's a lot of, you're missing out on a lot of potential for the points that you're putting into them.
So, but the other thing that I mentioned is that it's such a large threat and people are so scared about this that you're telling your opponent's just going to stay back. Like when I played against the Seraphon, I literally put my 2 things in the middle and my opponent had to like deploy all the way to the side. So yeah. Okay. So, and that's making your opponent then change their deployment style where they used to castle up in like the middle, but then you go, no, my crawlers are here. Then they have to go into side and then you just ruined that opponent's synergy straight away. Like the crawlers are such a huge threat, but they're not like, sure, you might be thinking like they're not doing much, but they're playing such a huge mind game that your opponent is just going like, I don't want to get hit by this. So they're just deploying by the sides and they're just ruining the synergy of their army. And then you're going, cool, I still have mine. You don't have yours. I'm pretty much going to win this game due to that already by deployment. Deployment is such a huge part of the game. And these crawlers, when you explain to your opponent, but it's a 43-inch threat range, it's just messing up their mind so much that they go, I can't do anything about it. So yeah, I think they're great for that.
I think we've heard two different sides. I think people are going to either love these guys and going to want to take 2 or 3. Some people are going to say, no, this is hot garbage. I'd rather more combat, or I'd rather spend those, 400, 600 points, depending on how many people are taking, into more characters, more tech guard, more something else. So it's probably arguments on both sides.
It's just hard because the army's such a expensive army points wise. So you know, by taking one thing, you're missing out on others. So yeah.
Look, either way you guys choose, let's see how we go. Certainly some people are concerned about things like, double piling in flesh eater courts, or, a Slaanesh shooting certainly plays a part. But as Matt, you've called out a few times, some of those ways of doing damage could be challenging in some situations. Outside of that, we've got 3 units that are not Battleline. That is our Immortus Guard, our Morghast Archai, and our other Morghast, our Harbingers.
And Stalkers.
And Stalkers, of course. Yes, absolutely, the Stalkers. Sorry, it's literally right next to your battalion. So you've got 4 different choices. Are these guys worth the investment in points? Do we like them? I know a lot of people who bought the box set, who are obviously getting their Morghast, aren't building them and not using them. Do you guys? Okay, let's talk Immortus Guard. So great bodyguards for Nagash. Is that the only value for these guys?
Oh, these guys are amazing. Holy crap. Like, these guys are bang for a buck. 200 points to add 12 extra wounds to your heroes. I'll take that any day. So these guys here, I actually am using them to bodyguard all my heroes. So Arcan, my Bone Shapers, my Bone Maintenance, and my Liege. So pretty much on a 2-up, you roll a dice before you allocate a wound or a mortal wound to a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper hero while within 3 of the friendly unit with this ability. On a 2-up, you must allocate that wound or mortal wound to this unit instead of allocating it to the hero. So pretty much, if anyone's going to try and snipe Arcan in my list, these guys are going to be next to him taking the damage, and then they get their 6-up ward kind of thing. So yeah, so pretty much these guys are not bad in combat. They got 2 attacks each, 3s and 3s, -2 damage. You can add 1 extra attack with a Liege if you want to, if you really want to make them killy. But they're 5-inch move, which is kind of fast compared to some of the rest of the units, which are 4-inch. 3-up save. So again, in Petrifex, they go up to 2-up, 4 wounds. And then the command ability is after everyone's fought at the end of the combat phase, if these guys have already fought, they can pretty much fight again with their shields, which have 2 attacks. 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, 1 damage, but on an unmodified hit roll of a 6, it inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So yeah, these guys are tanky, and their toolbox is to pretty much add extra 12 wounds to all your heroes.
Are you taking them in units of 3? Are you taking them in units of... Yep, okay.
3. You don't take them in any more because of 200 points, and you want to use those other... Let's just say unit 6, you want to use those other 200 points for something else like Mortec Guard and stuff. They can come into a unit of 12, but I think that's a bit of a waste, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the same thing where, again, let's go with kind of Hunters of Swords. They're really good in units of 3, not really good in units of 6.
But I'm hearing that you're taking potentially lots of them, but splitting them out into multiple small units.
You take 1 unit. You don't need any more than just 1 unit. You just need.
So you're only taking a unit of 3.
Yep, they are doing their job in a unit of 3.
Okay.
And these guys are really good as well, because people are scared to go into them because the halberds do so much damage, and since this army gets so many buffs, that they actually can kill quite a bit, even unbuffed. So they have got that threat in combat, and they also got that durability because you can make them a 2-up save, rerolling once. So,
how often would you use their command ability, Liam?
The only reason why I would use it is if the unit which has got like 2 or 3 models left, and I just need to take it off.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, that's the only time you ever use it. If it's more than 3 models, don't even bother, unless you think you can battle shock it. But generally, you just use it just to chip off damage, but you never really use it, in my opinion, unless you really want to just get rid of that last model or that last wound on a hero that's stuck in combat with you. That's it. But I rate these guys. These guys are great. So yeah.
What about our Morghast? So we've got 2 different variants of the Morghast.
What about Stalkers?
I think we talk about Stalkers.
Stalkers is next.
What? No. All right. All right.
Well, it's the same kit. We're just going to talk about which ones would you build.
Well, then let's just do the low hanging fruit. Let's do that. Low hanging fruit. Do we like the Morghasts? And if we are which one are we going?
Okay.
I'm still burnt from when they were in Legions and the Gash. It always seemed like they failed to me every time. 3 attacks, 3s and 3s. I always ended up missing one out of those to hit. Then I'd miss one to wound, and I'd only have one hit going through, and it'd shit me up the wall every time. But look, I think if I'm taking Petrifix Elite, I'm thinking more along the lines of taking the Archive, because as I said earlier in the show, I think we really suffer to mortal wounds. And the Archive with that 5-up ignore mortal wounds can be really good. There's 6 wounds. There'll be a 3-up save in Petrifix. And you've got ways of healing them in this army quite easily with Bone Shapers, Archon, whatever.
Yeah.
If I know everyone goes Harbingers because they got a 3d6 charge, you can still roll 3 1s on that. Like it's not always the be all and end all. I think the Archive for that ignore wounds on mortal wounds on a 5-up, I think they can be really good for this army.
See, I always in Legions, I always ran the Harbingers, and they were always rock solid for me. And I can only imagine if I'm taking our Staunch Lords. Liam, what's your real name?
What?
What's our Staunch Lord's real name?
Staliac Lords?
Yeah, those guys. So if I'm taking those guys, and I'm able to run and charge, and I'm like
Magro, there's some secret tech there that I would explain to you later with them.
Well,
there's some good secret tech.
Let's explain it on the video for our wonderful listeners.
I mean when we talk about battalions.
Okay, all right, cool. All right. So I have a natural preference to the Harbingers, but Liam, you're actually a Bone Daddies player. What are your thoughts?
Harbingers, 3-6 charge every day. It's a movement game. Cool. It is a movement game. They have fly, and you can make these guys fly over the chaff unit. 3-6 charge, you can snap that hero if you want to do that. But
their bases aren't that big as well. Like they're pretty decent size. They're not crazy big.
I have fly too.
Yeah,
but they don't have 3-6 charge.
No, but you can give them extra 3-inch move. Yeah, and if you're in that Staliac Lords, they can run and charge.
But again, you can do that to the same with the Harbingers.
Yeah, but how much range do you need? Jeez.
All right. Matt's been burnt by the 3d6 charge, so we're gonna ignore his opinion in this particular part because he's got baggage.
But to answer this, right, I would only build it if I'm taking those particular battalions that have it, because technically they are attacks in those battalions. Cool. To answer your question, Magro, you would only take them in those battalions because due to they are attacks in those battalions.
Okay, so outside of that, there's just better choices. But if I'm taking a battalion that requires them, then our preference is that way. So
they also all these it's one thing to note too with all these 4 options of units, they've all got the Hecatos keyword, so they all can give them death saves. Doesn't
even
matter
without a hero. Yeah.
Cool. So they and not one of them has it. They both have it, or each model has it.
Yep.
All right, now you talk Stalkers.
I'll talk Stalkers.
Go on.
I think Stalkers are amazing. I really like them. So they're 4 wounds each. They're only a 6-inch move with a 4-up save, which goes to a 3-up save if you got Petrifix, which most people are going to take Petrifix. Now, at the start of each combat phase, they've got 4 different abilities you can pick from. So you can reroll hit rolls, you can reroll save rolls, you can reroll wound rolls, or you can improve the rend and damage characteristic of the melee weapons by 1. So it's probably a good thing to go through their weapons. So the Spirit Blades, they have 5 attacks each, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 1 damage. So if you go Precision Aspect, it goes to 2 rend, 2 damage. If you're in Petrifix Elite and spend 1 point, it goes to 3 rend, 2 damage. They also have Dread Falchions, which are 3 attacks, 4s to hit, so they're 1 less to hit, but they're 3s to wound, they're 2 rend and they're 2 damage, which goes to 3 rend, 3 damage if you take Precision Aspect. They also have a command ability, which is Hunt and Kill. You can reroll run and charge rolls for that unit until your next hero phase. In addition, until your next hero phase, when the unit makes a move, it can pass across terrain features in the same manner as models that can fly. It pretty much gives them fly keyword, but it doesn't say they can go over models. It's only over terrain features.
And by the way, I do want to call out, you said only 6 inches. I like that. You think that's a small movement when our poor dispossessed dwarf fire slayer players are working off 4 inches. But yes, such a small movement of 6.
You can make it 9 quite easily. They're actually 1 more inch now that I realise they're an inch further than the Mortis Guard. They're only 5, so
they don't have shields carrying. They're not carrying shields, so that's fine.
I know, yeah, but So I think they're really good. So if you get charged and your opponent's going to attack first, you just go re-roll save rolls. You know, if you know you can charge and attack first, you go on precision aspect. They're pretty much Morsar Guard. Like they're two damage with rend and 2 rend, and you know they're actually really good.
Before Liam's question, are you taking them in the minimum unit of 3, or are you going into units of 6?
I got a unit of 6 in my list.
And Liam, just shaking your head. What's that mean?
6.
Okay, so always taking 6.
Yep.
Why?
Well, I'm just going to ask this quick question. So pretty much why 6 is because they got 5 attacks each. So you can get 30 attacks. You pretty much, when they charge in, no matter what they're touching, they're going to die.
So they're obliterating in the charge.
It's, as Matt said, they're Morsar Guard, but for death.
Yeah.
Like, you know how Morsar Guard, when they charge, you pretty much just remove that unit?
Yep. Most of the time, unless you're Ken Van Ship who charges my fanatics. But yes.
So here's a question for you, Matt, for a quick discussion. The Drad Falconis, it hits on 4s, right? Will you still build it? Well, like, have you still built it? And is that because you know that you can get +1 to hit in the army? Or do you think you just go straight for the Spirit Blades?
I've definitely built it because it looks cool. And but I think I built it because it looks cool, and I will play it WYSIWYG, so I will be playing with the actual, with that stat.
So for people at home who are listening and watching, don't be too scared of the 4s to hit, because there's so much things in our army that can give it +1 to hit, like artifacts and spells. So you can actually get it down to 2s to hit, actually, to get all the buffs right. So don't be scared of that, even though you can have like 2 of them having 3 damage weapons. So there is ways around it, so don't be too scared. That's pretty much why I want to ask for Matt, because people are probably going to just go for Spirit Blades, but use it because it actually looks cool. So yeah, that was just one thing I wanted to ask.
Perfect. The final thing we got to talk about, which will be our Behemoth choice. You've got a huge amount of Behemoths to choose from. It is the Harvester, and you've also got the Harvester and the Harvester. So do we like the Harvester? I know there was an FAQ recently that came out that impacted the Harvester. What was that FAQ, and are they still valuable?
Look, the people were trying to... Look, rules is written. It was fine. They could play it that way. But so it has a rule. I think I mentioned it earlier. If a model is slain within 3 inches of the Harvester, on a 4+, you can heal a wound. If it's more tech guard, you're bringing back 1 model. If it's a wounds characteristic of 5 to 9, a model is slain. It does D3 wounds, heals D3. If it was 10 or more more wounds characteristic model, it returns D6 wounds to a unit within 6 inches. Yeah, within 6. So the way it's worded is you could do it for each Harvester. So people were thinking that they were going to run 2 Harvesters with a unit of 40 more tech guard, and for each 1 model that died, they were going to roll 2 4-ups. So you could possibly get 2 models back from every 1 model that died, sort of thing. Which most of us thought was going to be FAQ'd straight away, and it's exactly what happened. So no one was surprised, and I think if you're disappointed, well, you probably shouldn't have been trying to play it that way in the first place.
If it wasn't going to be FAQ now, it probably would have been FAQ'd in January. So
for sure. Look, it's quite a good model. So it's got 10 wounds, a 6-inch move, 4+ save. So it can keep up with your Mortec Guard. It can keep up with your Stalkers, whatever. It has a shooting attack, which is a 16-inch shooting attack, which is actually quite good. 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, only 1 damage, but it's something. And then you've got the choice of Soul Cleaver Sickles or Soul Crusher Bludgeons. They both, before you're wounded, both have 6 attacks each. The Sickles, you get to reroll failed. Is it +1 to hit?
Yeah, +1 to hit.
Yeah, +1 to hit if the unit has 5 or more models. And the Bludgeons, on a roll of a 6, it does 2 mortal wounds. So out of 6 attacks, you might get 1 mortal wound. So otherwise, out of 6 attacks with the Sickles against a bigger unit, you're going to have +1 to hit, so you're going to miss a lot less. They're both 2 rend, so the mortal wounds probably aren't that valuable, really. Like I think you're better off going with the Sickles, and I will when I build mine. And they're 2 damage each. And then it's got Hooves and Tail, which are 4 attacks, 3s and 2s, 1 rend, 2 damage as well. So it can actually put out quite a bit of damage between all of its attacks. I wouldn't say it's a massive beat stick, but I think you're probably better off to be running it behind your Mortec if you're wanting to keep your Mortec guard alive, or because you want to have as many Mortec models within 3 inches of it as possible. Like, you don't want to have your Harvester up one end of your unit attacking your opponent and only getting to heal back some of your Mortec. So yeah, look, I think they're almost like a support character with a shooting attack and can get into combat if you need. Or you could even just have 1 row of Mortec in front of them, because they have, if you got Mortec guard right up against their base, they can then be in combat with their 1-inch attacks, and they've got 2-inch attacks on their Hooves and Tail. So yeah, I like them. I'll definitely be putting some in my future lists. Currently, they're not in my list, but that's only because I haven't got the model. So
I guess this, and I don't want to cause World War III again with you two, but if I'm taking a Harvester, that's 200 points currently. The Crawler is 200 points. If I'm going down this route, Liam, you said 2 Crawlers, is definitely the way to go. You wouldn't go 1. That's 400 points. You start making sacrifices with your Harvester if you're trying to bring that in, and then that's then impacting your Mortec guard or even the types of heroes you're bringing in. So you really are struggling to probably fit in the type of army you really want in that 2,000 points. So I can see there's certainly some trade-offs starting to come up depending on the type of build.
Yeah, and like with the mortal wounds, like I just see in the chat there, once you do the 2 mortal wounds, the attack sequence stops as well. So that kind of, if it was an extra 2 mortal wounds plus the attack, I think it would be a lot better for the bludgeons. But yeah.
So for me, right, the add the 1 to hit rolls is only against 5 or more models, but there's so many things in this army that gives you +1 to hit anyway. So I think the Sickles are better because you're already going to be hitting on 2s most of the time. You
think the bludgeons are better, you mean?
Bludgeons are better, yeah. I think bludgeons are better than Sickles because you're already going to be hitting on 2s most of the time. So the +1 to hit's not really worth it when it's just nice. Like the 6 mortal, like the 2 mortal wounds is just like a nice bonus to be like, okay, cool. Like, don't make a save, 2 mortal wounds. Like, yeah, that's just my thing. But I think that's probably what they're thinking as well. Yeah. But because there's so many things, like you got the spell, you got an artifact, all this stuff that can give you +1 to hit. So, yeah, like I rate this. This is very much designed for the heavy Mortec guard builds. Like if you're going to go 20-20-20 Mortec guard, you have 1 or 2 Harvesters. So that's it really, and you're playing the durable game. So yeah, they're great and they're awesome models. I really love this model. This is one of my favorite models.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cool. Well, that's all the units, and holy wow, despite what appears to be a small selection of units, a lot of different ways to build an army, and so many so dynamic, I guess, in the unit choices. So there's a lot of cool things as opposed to some armies which are very much sames. Boys, I might take the next one if that's all right with you. Yeah. Do you trust me with this one?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to talk your ally choices. So when it comes to the allies of the Bone Reapers, and I'm going to choose what I think is going to be the best. The choices are nothing. So you have the choice of nothing and nothing. So for me, your ally points, you don't have to worry about them. However, you obviously do have the mercenary companies that are within General's Handbook 2019. So if you think that you are limited in a certain particular area, obviously you've got, I think there's 10 different mercenary companies. You are sacrificing a command point, which doesn't mean anything to you, considering you don't use command points. But again, we talked about the struggles of your points already. So if you're looking for cheap chaff, maybe it's the Marauders. But otherwise, you don't have to worry about allies.
Can you take a Vampire Lord on foot as a mercenary?
No.
Damn it.
You've got your Necromancer with skeletons and a corpse cart as the death version.
Yeah,
but
that won't work.
there's no Vamp Lord. But
no, I was hoping you could because with the Vampire Lord, because it's just death keyword, you give +1 attack with a command ability.
Hey, look, you could take a unit of Pistoliers.
Hang on. Isn't there a Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed with Blood Knights?
Yeah, actually, there might be. Yeah, there might be actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Vamp Lord on. It has to be on a steed with Blood Knights.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I forgot about the Blood Knight one. I'm thinking of like the Chaos Gargants. I'm thinking of Marauders. I'm thinking of the Pistoliers and.
So the fact that the army, they still get command points, but they can't use them. You could use it on a Vampire Lord and give.
Absolutely.
Spend the command points to give +1 attack to, because it just says death keyword.
But it's not worth it because you're taking Blood Knights, which you have to take, which is 200 points plus the thing. So that's 360 points when the army is already so expensive.
To be honest with you, this discussion went a lot longer than I expected. So I thought you guys would just laugh at me and then we just move on. But yes, so.
But we're gamey.
Yeah. All right. Well, the mercenaries are there, but yes, otherwise there are no allies as it stands, which I'm surprised with. But hey, who needs allies when you are the Bone Reapers?
Yeah, you don't need them.
Cool. So that's my job done. I can retire for the rest of the night. We have battalions to choose from. You have 2, 4, 6, 7. If I can count correctly.
Hey, Matt, did you know that we have endless spells?
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah, I heard we have endless spells.
Cool. Yeah, that's after battalions. Are you teasing me because Cities of Sigmar didn't get any endless spells?
Oh, yeah, that too.
We also didn't get a terrain piece, but this is not about me. This is about you. Yep. Let's talk about the battalion. You've got the Immortal. You've got what the Death Glaive. You've got the Lance. You've got the I can't even read that. The Shield Corps, the Trident. I'm squinting from where I'm sitting.
I'll start with the first. I'll start with the first.
We got the book. We got the book so we can read.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm trying to deal 100 things like I'm Sash the DJ. So talk to me about the battalions. Are they all good, or are they just a couple of ones that you'd pick out as the go-to battalions?
Look, they've all got their place. I think you could use all of them if you want to. There's a couple that I probably would never use personally, but so we'll just go through them. I'll go through the first one. So it's the Mortex Shield Corps. When I first read this, I thought you had to take each hero that's named, and even I think Liam was the same. He's like, you got to take all these heroes. Well, I'm like, no, you don't. So there's a dot point that's got you got to choose from one of these heroes. It's Vok Mortian, 1 Mortison Bone Shaper, 1 Mortison Soul Reaper, or 1 Mortison Soul Mason, and 3 Mortek Guard units. So with the Shield Corps, they're Unbreakable Bulwark. Once per turn, you can use the Shield Wall command ability for a unit from this battalion without spending a Relentless Discipline point to do so. So for each battle round, that's 2 points you're saving, which is really valuable in this game. I find myself running out of the points quite quickly. So to be able to save yourself 2 discipline points each battle round, it's really quite valuable. Plus you're getting 1 drop from 4, normally 4 drops. And most armies are going to have 3 units of Mortek Guard, and definitely going to have one of those heroes. So it's quite an easy battalion to field. You're not really going out of your way. There's no tax in this battalion as far as units go. And for 120 points, it's a little bit costly, but you're getting an extra discipline point. You're getting that extra artifact. I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What about some other ones?
No, you can take this next one as well. I'm never going to run it.
Okay,
Look,
so this next one's actually quite good. I find it's not too bad. It's called the Mortison Trident. So you got to take a Mortison Bone Shaper, Mortison Soul Reaper, Mortison Soul Mason, and a Gothisar Harvester. So most of my lists, I'm going to have 3 of those in it. The Soul Reaper, probably not. But to take this one, then I might. So each Mortison from this battalion, so each one of these magician wizards, it can attempt to cast 1 extra spell in your hero phase if it's within 18 inches of the harvester. So your Soul Mason's going from 2 spells to 3. The other 2 are going up from 1 spell to 2, which is valuable if you're taking endless spells. Obviously, means they can cast that endless spell plus they're casting a spell from the lore or their own spell. And you've got the Harvester, which most lists you're probably going to take anyway. And the other thing is too, the Harvester has to be within 3 inches of enemy units. So it's probably not going to be first turn that you're going to get that extra spell.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look, it's not too bad. Gets a couple of drops down, gets you an extra command point. The cost of it it's only 110 points, 10 points cheaper. The Shield Corps is probably the better option there.
I mean, you get an artifact, you get a command point. Although you don't even care about command points, so you're getting you're getting the other points, and for each battle round, you get an extra point for a battalion. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah. Did you want to do the next one too, Liam, or me?
I'll take the next one. I'll take the next one because this is the secret tech I was telling.
All right, so you got this is the Death Glaive, right?
Yeah. So the Catacrozian Death Glaive. So 2 units of Stalkers and 1 unit of Morghast Harbingers. So these guys are speedy. After enemies are set up, but before the first battle round begins, if all units from this battalion are wholly within 12 of the Morghast Harbingers, you can move any units from this battalion up to 6 inches.
Okay.
Now, this is great for deep striking. So let's just say there's some Stormcast and some Evocators that you know are going to drop down. You just zone them out an extra 6 inches. And then if you're taking the Ossiarch Lords, you've now just given yourself 6-inch move. And then now you've gone, cool, now I'm going to move now with +3 move and plus run. So you're pretty much already across the board and you can do a turn 1 charge with both units of Stalkers.
Yeah.
So that is when you start seeing like Death Glaive works really well with like Ossiarch Lords, making that whole thing super fast, and same with the Harbingers. So it's pretty much like a massive Death Star, but you're pretty much locking your opponent into their deployment zone turn 1 if you know you're going to take turn 1.
Yeah.
So, and most of those units are actually quite hard to kill because they're 4 wounds each or 6.
6 wounds. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, with all the buffs and stuff go off them, it's pretty good.
So we're moving this before the choice of first turn?
First turn. So if you know, but the thing is, it says
before the first battle round begins.
It says you can move them.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it.
Oh no, you don't have to. But I'm just thinking whether, say your opponent outdrops you, do they choose to go first before this happens, or does this happen and then they choose?
So it says before the first battle round begins. So that's before they get to decide who gets to go first. Okay. So it happens before they get to pick. So, but since this one here, it doesn't have any of your heroes or anything. So this is actually like not taking any, like this is just like, you're not really taking all of these always. Like you're pretty much taking these for this battalion to run this kind of list.
I don't think it's as clear cut as you just said. I think it might be something that you might want to clarify with your TO if you're going down this route.
What? That it does before the first battle round begins?
Before the first battle round commences or begins.
First battle round, the way it works is it's been before the opponent decides who gets to go first, because that's when the battle round begins.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's exactly like the Star Host from Seraphon, where the Sphinx get to move before the person gets to decide. It's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
So my advice really is to get that to your TO and be upfront with it, just in case they perceive the ruling differently and they rule against it. There's a little bit of gray there that I could see could cause some confusion. So this is a warning from me. I do agree with you, Liam, but there's definitely a bit of gray that could even just start your game negatively if someone perceives it a little bit differently.
The thing I see, the problem with this battalion is obviously it's happening before your opponent chooses. So if you move everything up 6 inches, it just means your opponent's got a lot better chance of taking first turn and like charging into those units and wiping them off.
Yeah. But that's why I would only do it if I know I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
So,
if I know I want to zone my opponent.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you want to 100% have that decision. You do not want to be on the receiving end, and then you make a move, and then they swap the decision. So obviously, it's going to be hard to tell. It's just a very sketchy ruling.
Yeah.
You got your Immortal, which is going to be your Morghast Archai and your 2 Immortus Guard. And what happens? So the battalion, their Soulbound Protector's ability for the so the Archai get the Soulbound.
They get the shield wall
ability. Yep. In addition, they roll a dice on a 5+. The wound or mortal wound is negated instead of being allocated. So it's pretty good. Makes them even more durable.
Thing is, though, as I said earlier, you would only take 1 unit of a Mortis Guard, so it's not really worth it.
Yeah, because you're forced to take 2 in this battalion.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got your Lance, which is your Arc. Was it?
It's your Arch Cavalos Xantos, so the named guy, or the 1 lead Cavalos. And then you got 2 units of Death Striders. So this is good because it's similar to the Mortex Shield Corps, where you have a hero and 2 Battleline choices. So units from this battalion can charge in if they retreated earlier the same. So this kind of replaces the Staliarch Lord's ability.
Yeah.
But they have to be wholly within 12 of the lead from this battalion to do so. In addition, though, once per turn, you can use the Death Strider command ability from this battalion without spending a Relentless Discipline point.
All right. So if you're going to go down that Lord's path, you're not going to want to take the Lance. But if you want to tap into that benefit and not go down that path, this could be for you.
You would take it in the you would take the Lance for like saving yourself a point, because the thing is, those Staliarch Lords is quite point heavy with the whole retreating and charging for other units. So if you want to save some points up, that's pretty good. But yeah, I know what you mean, though. I agree at the same time. Agree.
There's redundancy in that potentially you're better off with that build somewhere else.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm sure there's some secret source in that, but just again, we talked about some redundancy and potentially too much. This could be one of those.
Agreed.
And then finally, Matt has run away, but more importantly, okay. And then you got your Mortec, Ballistari, and that is your Bone Shaper, your Mortec Guard, and then 2 Crawlers. So you roll a dice before you allocate a wound or a mortal wound to your crawler. If it's within 3 of the Mortec Guard, add 2 to the roll. If the Mortec crawler is within 3 inches of the Bone Shaper, on a 4+, the wound or mortal wound is allocated to the guard instead of the crawler. So you're bouncing off your wounds or your mortal wounds to your guard. Obviously, if you have that harvester, it can bring models back. But potentially it goes back to the strategy as well, as maybe you do want to suffer some mortal wounds, so you get the better shooting ability.
Yeah, this is just to make the crawlers more durable.
Yeah.
Pretty much like you give them extra 10 wounds or even 40 wounds if you want to. I would say 10 wounds. And also pretty much you got 2 battle line there, and if you're going for, you got 1 battle line, and if you've got 2 crawlers, so if you're taking the 2 crawlers, it just lowers your drops and it has a hero, which you would take. Like a Bone Shaper is a really good hero. So yeah, that's just my thing on it. So yeah.
Cool. Sweet. All right, let's close that section out. We have built all of our lists, and we've got some pretty rock solid unit choices, and we know
endless spells.
Yeah, we'll get to that later when we talk about.
But it's part of the list.
Your face is a list. All right.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. People like looking at my face then.
That's not what the AOS Coach survey said. Put in the comments section what you think of Liam's face. Anyway, all right. Like I'm a man of the people. I will bow down to the pressures of the peasants like yourself, Liam. So let's do your endless spells. So let's first talk off the endless spells within your army, and then we can talk about some other endless spells outside that are complementary. So.
You would never take anything outside. You just take these.
All right. Well, let's get to that first. Let's not ruin Christmas for that. There's presents under the tree, Liam. So you've got what have you got? You've got 3 endless spells. You've got the Carrion. You've got I think it's a Shrieker, and you've got the Predator. So your endless spells are sitting anywhere between 20 to 40 points, which are pretty generous. Are they all good or not?
Yep, they're all good.
They're all amazing.
So the Predator's really good. You pick an enemy hero, and then what's it called? Soul marked or whatever it is. It's a prey. If it gets to within 3 inches of that hero, it does D6 mortal wounds to it. At the end of every move, everything within 3 inches of it takes D3 mortal wounds, and it moves 2 D6 inches. It only casts on a 7, so it's not too bad. But yeah, once that hero, that prey hero is dead, the endless spell then just disappears, is dispelled.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite a pretty good endless spell, and as I said earlier, your opponents can't move it, so it's always going where you want it to go.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to talk about, Liam?
I think I can talk about the Shrieker because I've talked about it heaps because you have some secret tech with the bird.
Yeah.
So the Shrieker one is pretty much, this spell is also soul linked, but so pretty much subtract 1 from bravery units while they're within 12 inches of this model. And Ossiarch Bonereapers aren't affected by this ability, and no escape. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by Ossiarch Bonereapers that target a unit that is within 12 inches of this model. It's a casting value of 5, and it sets up wholly within 12 inches. It can move 8. Now, something that's really important now is it doesn't say after it's set up it gets to move.
So why is that important?
Because when the endless spells first got released, like Geminids and everything, they did say when they got set up they can move.
Mm-hmm.
This one here just says it just sets up wholly within 12, and that's it.
Okay, so you can't cast it through a spell portal then and move it to do damage, which is a strategy. Yep.
Yeah, so that is the same thing with all the spells here. They don't say anything about once it's been summoned, it can move.
Okay, cool.
Just something to let everyone else know, because that's the same thing with a few other spells that recently just got released, and people are playing them wrong.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Don't be a bad person, or Liam will come for you, and you'll get
pretty much actually. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
Liam will hunt you down if you play it wrong.
So then we've got the Carrion, the Soul Stealer Carrion. It's a cast on a 6. It can be set up anywhere on the board, so it doesn't have any range. And then it can move 16 inches. Well, you move it because it's your model. So how it works is every unit within 6 inches of it, every time there's a model slain within 6 inches of it, at the end of that phase, on a 1 to 2, you roll dice for each model slain, and on a 1 to 2 you heal the caster that's soul linked to it.
Yep.
On a 3 to 4, that unit, you pick a chaos, destruction, or order unit within that range of the 6 inches. They take 1 mortal wound, and on a 5 or 6 it does both. That unit takes a mortal wound and you heal a wound.
So it does nothing to death. It's just
doesn't hurt death, no.
Okay.
Which is annoying. But it's only it's only a 20-point spell. You can set this up in your front lines. If you've got armies like, for example, Iron Jaws that do charge phase in their hero phase, and they might kill one of your Mortek Guard. That unit's then taking 1 mortal wound at the end of that phase. Anything that does a mortal wound in the hero phase and kills a model, they're taking a mortal wound, or not always taking mortal wound. Sorry, on a 1 to 2, they're only healing your model, but there's a good chance on a 3 up they're taking mortal wound. It's any phase, so any movement phase, shooting phase, anything that does kill a model, they're taking 1 mortal wound for everything within 6 inches. That's chaos, death, or destruction. Chaos, destruction, or order. I don't know. I think it's not too bad for 20 points to be able to just keep throwing out mortal wounds. If you've got your Nightmare Predator on the board and it runs past this thing, that happens. If it's the next turn, not when you've cast it, but in the next turn, that happens before the hero phase. So that's another phase in itself that this can do more mortal wounds. So you move this bird to where you need it. You move the predator around near the bird, kill a model or two, and then you're doing hopefully even more mortal wounds to anything within 6 inches of the bird. Look,
not a bad investment for 20 points. Like you
for
can't,
20 points.
If you've got 20 points left, you can't buy squat with 20 points unless you're going for the triumph.
But what I was just about to say is there's no point in taking a triumph in this army due to one of the triumphs is pretty much you get a command point for free. Like if you roll that, you can't use anything about it.
Yeah.
And also re-rolling hits we already have in the army. Re-roll wounds would be nice, but it's on a 1 of 6 chance to get it. Triumphs aren't really worth it in this army at all. If you're going for a triumph, you're just wasting because half of them they're no use to you.
Yeah.
Like one of them is like, don't take a battle shock test. We already don't take battle shock.
It's already a risk that you wouldn't get the triumph anyway, that your opponent has less points. And then of that, you're saying approximately 50% of those triumphs are not actually usable in this army or valuable. So if I have 20 odd points left, I'm much better investing those into one of these endless spells.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Cool. And speaking of endless spells, you mentioned that you wouldn't rate any of the other endless spells, both from Malign Sorcery or for Forbidden Power. So you don't see any value of Bridge. You don't see valuable in any of the Bravery debuffs, damage like Geminids or Quicksilver Swords. You don't see any cogs to speed up the movement of some of your faster units already.
Nope.
Why?
One, they're more expensive than our endless spells, and we're already such an expensive army. Mm-hmm. And also, for example, they do damage to us, and we're already affecting as we're already a low body count. So let's just say we got D3 mortal wounds from Geminids and -1 to hit or -1 attack, right? Just from getting it hit back to us. We are just already losing models when we're saying that we're such a low body count, but that's going to affect us. Where you pretty much want to keep things out of your way, and that's why using your own endless spells like the Bone Reaper ones are great because they buff your army and don't do any damage to you or affect you.
What about that magic? What about your magic sub-allegiance, the Nuln? The Nuln?
Well then, but that's when, but you want to kind of use that against your opponent. Endless spells targeting you. You don't want to cast Geminids, let's say, and then it just hits back to you. Then you have to spend a command point for saving yourself from a spell that you cast yourself. You're just wasting it, kind of thing. So I honestly don't rate anything outside. Cogs, it helps your opponent with +2 movement and +2 charge. So you don't really want to help your opponent out with that. And the Soul Screen Bridge is that we already get +7. Let's just say we're 15 away. Pretty much Soul Screen Bridge is just defeating the purpose because you're going to be 9 away. Then you need an 8-inch charge. You may as well just do the +7 move and then go for a charge with a +1 to it as well. So, yeah.
Matt, do you agree with what Liam has said about endless spells outside of your own?
I think if you're maybe taking Nagash, you might take spell portals. That's about it. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I think these 3 endless spells are pretty good and cover a lot of things. So I don't think you really got the space to take any more.
And we already know this is a very expensive army to run.
Yeah,
so find those points.
And the other thing, building lists with this army, you always have I'm finding I'm always got 100 spare points or 80 spare points that I can't spend. So I'm just chucking all 3 of these endless spells in. I might not ever use them in the game, but what else am I going to spend the points on? You can't buy an extra command point.
Yeah. Cool.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good discussion. I'll be curious to hear what other people's thoughts are when it comes to endless spells outside of theirs. But it sounds like our experts are saying no value to you.
Yep.
All right. So we're on the home stretch, and high level, we've talked about the army, we've talked about the strength, talked about the weaknesses, we've talked about building a list, we've talked about the heroes, the units, the non-battle line, the with shooting, we are behemoths, we've talked about everything. Now we're going to start customizing and going from really the little minor tweaks are going to help you really perform on the battlefield through your command traits, your artifacts, your spell choices. And I think the best way to do this is a bit of a round robin. We'll kind of spitfire some of the choices that really stand out. Maybe they stand out in particular sub-allegiance, or they just stand out as the better choice in the army. So I'm going to share my screen again, and let's bring up the command traits. So when I look at the command traits, when we're talking about the Liege, we're talking about the Cavalos commander traits. We have 6. We have ancient knowledge. We have so we've got add one additional discipline point at the start of the battle round. If the general's on the table, we can negate a wound or a mortal wound on a 5+ instead of a 6. If the wizard's if the general's a wizard, it knows an additional spell. And it can cast an additional spell in the hero phase and unbind one in the enemy phase. You can unmodify wound rolls for attacks made by the general. Sorry, if an unmodified wound roll for the attacks made by the weapon is a 6, it inflicts a mortal wound. Add 1 to the hit roll for weapons and their mount unless the target is death. Or finally, at the end of the combat phase, if the enemy model was slain by a wound inflicted by the general's attacks in combat, it can then heal up to D3 wounds. So is there any ones that stand out for you guys?
Most importantly is you can't take these if you're going one of the factions.
This is like if you're not taking a faction.
Yeah, to be honest, I've read through these, but I'm always going to take a faction. I don't see any of these being any better than what you get from factions. So, look, maybe the heal one's pretty good. One additional relentless discipline point's good, but yeah, I don't think any of them really stand out that would make this a more valuable choice than taking a faction. One of the, what do you call them? Legions, whatever they are.
If you're not going to go Legion, you would probably go Ancient Knowledge or Prowess Warrior for like an extra mortal wound, but that's it really. Or even like Dark Acolyte, those 3, that's it. Let's say the other ones I don't really rate. So yeah.
Oh, cool. So you've got who are these? Who has this keyword?
Bone Shaper,
wizard,
Soul Reaper,
wizards.
and
so these are our wizard traits.
Yeah.
So we've got one to the add 1 to the relentless discipline at the start of the battle round if they're on the battlefield.
It's the same. They're the same too.
Yep.
The first 2 are the same.
Pardon?
The first 2 are the same as the Liege.
Okay, so the first 2 are the same, are replicated between the wizard and the non-wizard. The other options, number 3, is subtract 2 for the bravery characteristic of enemies within 12 of the general. The 4th one is that the general knows an additional spell from the law. The 5th one is roll a dice each time your opponent receives a command point, and on a 6, they lose the command point. And then the last one is you can reroll casting, dispels, and unbinds for the general. If you do so, though, you do suffer a mortal wound after this spell is carried out. So, any of those stand out for you?
Soul Energy.
Soul Energy is that rerolling the cast, dispelling, and unbinds.
Yeah, because pretty much if they take a mortal wound, you can ignore it on a 6, and if you don't ignore it, then you have a Bone Shaper to heal you.
Cool. The artifacts. Yep. Sorry, Matt.
The Oathbreaker Curse might stack well with Catacross, maybe. You got a 4-up, 6-up to steal your opponent's command point.
Command points. And we know how important some armies are. They rely on command points. If you do that against my Gloomspite Gits, I'd laugh because I normally have like 12. But in most situations, that command point is vital for inspiring presence, re-rolling charges. Stealing that will make many people cry.
Yeah.
But
once again, I don't think that they're even really worth worrying about the command traits in this book.
Okay. We've got some relics. We've got the Mind Blade. We've got pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. Unmodified roll of is targeting a hero is a 6. The opponent loses the command point.
This is
And-
amazing.
And that hero cannot use the command ability for the rest of the battle.
This is really,
So we really like that. Is that the standout one out of the 6? Should I just
I
stop
don't know if
talking?
it's a standout. I just think it's really good. Like, if you're playing Nurgle and you hit their the
Harbinger.
Harbinger of Decay, they've lost their 5-up ignore wounds army wide.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that actually makes that army work. Like, any army that relies heavily on one hero with their command ability, this thing is bloody amazing.
Slaughter Queen on Cauldron.
All it is a it's a hit roll of 6. Like, you only have to hit them. You don't even have to wound them or anything. You just got to hit them.
It is melee though, so you know to get to the I think of my Hurricanum who's using the arcane channeling, or Liam, you just mentioned the cauldron. You've obviously to get into combat with the cauldron, but there are so many. Pardon?
Archeon, like you get rid of his, like
the whole army shuts down.
There are a lot of your bloodthirsters. There's a lot of cool hero combat ones that you can get in combat with. But the other ones before we jump into this is you've got once per battle start at any phase, you can activate the artifact and generate an additional 3 relentless points. You can subtract 2 from the bravery characteristics within 6 of the bearer. You can roll a dice. Each enemy unit within 3 of the bearer on a 4+, they take a mortal wound. Once per battle, you can pick one enemy unit within 6 of the bearer. You roll a dice on a 3+, they take D3 mortal wounds, and you get to heal 1 wound. And then you can add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Bone Reaper units, mounts, while they're wholly within 12 of the bearer.
Yeah, the helm, that one there is probably the standout one, I reckon. The plus
last
one to hit.
The +1 to hit to the mounts.
Yeah.
No, it's units and mounts.
But units and the mounts.
Yeah. Definitely that one is the standout and is the one I'd always take. But anything that's as soon as I see the first line of anything that says once per battle, I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I hate once per battle things.
So I think the 2 that we like are Mindblade and Helm of the Ordinated. The reason why Ordained, it's because the reason why I like the Helm is because you got Bone Shrieker going over at your opponent's line, and then if you want to castle up, the Liege is gonna buff them up as well and giving them +1 attack as well and +1 to hit. So it makes the Liege, his points skyrocket being worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We've got the tools of the Bone Shaper. We've got 3 of those. So they go to your Bone Shapers only. And the 3 are before you use the Bone Shaper ability. You roll a dice on a 4+. You pick 2 units within 6 inches of the bearer. And basically, what's that?
6 wounds back.
Yeah. Okay, so you get to bring back 6 wounds. Alternatively, at the start of the hero phase, pick a friendly Bone Reapers unit other than the bearer within an inch. Until the next hero phase, the Deathless Warrior's battle trait negates a wound or mortal wound on a 5+ instead of a 6. And then you've got the Crafter's Gem, which in the hero phase, you can heal up to 3 wounds allocated to the bearer once the total wounds of this artifact have been used to heal. During the battle equates to 3. So once you've healed up to 3, you can't use it for the rest of the battle. So you just generate 3. Well, I mean,
he can heal himself 3 anyway. So I think that's useless. I think that Artisan's Key is always what you take. It's like I have it in nearly every list I'm taking so far. That to bring back 6 more tech guard a turn is pretty good. I don't think you really care about the 5-up instead of 6-up. Yeah.
Okay. Liam, do you agree or disagree?
Key's the best.
Pardon? The key?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're all taking the key. The Soul Mason has 3. Add 1 to the wound rolls made by melee weapons by friendly death wholly within 9. As long as we're not targeting the death keyword. You can add 2 to the casting roll for the bearer. However, if the casting roll is unmodified 10+, the artifact can't be used again. Or add 2 to the bearer's wound characteristic and 2 to the attack characteristics of the claws from the bearer's mount. So this is only for Soul Masons.
Yeah, the first 2 are really good. Like the first one, if you've got them near a big unit or more tech guard, they're hitting. They might be hitting on 2s now, and then they're wounding on 3s.
On
Like
threes.
wounding on 4s is really bad. Like you're just halving whatever you've hit. So to wounding on 3s just makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Then
Agreed.
again, the Soul Reservoir is really good too, because the Mortis and Soul Mason, as we know, you cast 2 spells a turn. If you want to get that endless spell off with one of those, getting that +2 to cast can be really valuable. It's just the 10 plus,
The
which
10
is
plus
annoying.
is huge.
Yeah,
10 plus
which is annoying.
huge.
I think probably the first one.
Yeah,
probably
first
what
one's good.
It was
Yeah.
unmodified though, so
Yeah,
It's still there. Like, if you roll, it's kind of like making you don't want to roll a 10.
yeah, it
Like,
is
you
a
just go,
pain
I don't
if
wanna
you're
roll a
rolling
10.
but if we're rolling 2 dice, it's 3 out of the 12 results could be that, but it's still nonetheless something you don't want to be doing. Makes you cry like you do an arcane bot. You're like, yay, D3 damage. Oh yeah, by the way, I can't use it again. Screw you guys. We do have the weapons of the Soul Reaper, so this is only for Soul Reapers. We've got 3 options. We have subtract 1 from the hit rolls made for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, add 1 to the casting roll of the bearer while they attempt to cast the Soul Blast, the Pale of Doom, or any other spells from the Mortison Law. Once per battle in your hero phase, pick 1 enemy model within 12 of the bearer that is visible to them and roll a dice. On the roll, if the roll is equal or greater than the model's wound characteristic, the enemy model is slain. Or you've got the Deathless Warrior battle trait, negates the wound or mortal wounds allocated to the bearer on a 5+ instead of a 6-up. Instead of rolling the dice, you can say the bearer will shatter the artifact, and if you do so, the wound or mortal wound is negated without the dice roll. However, the artifact can't be used again for the rest of the battle.
Yeah. If you had to take one, you'd take the first one when you land. Like if you had to.
100%.
But you're not going to take any.
Like, I would love to take him. Can I just quickly say, Soul Reaper model is my favorite hero model that they've made. He is bowler. So cool. Just these rules aren't helping him. But that artifact there makes him, like, if you have him, that's what you're going to give him.
No.
So, yeah.
The
The best spell law. Let's do this.
All right. The best spell law. My Hello Heart disagrees with this, but we'll get back to this.
Have you read these yet? Have you read these?
I'm going to mute you. Mayor said earlier in the day that we bicker like a married couple. So,
and they've proven that quite well.
Yeah, we're doing all right. So you got 6 spell choices, which is pretty cool. It's a lot deeper than a lot of armies. What have we got? So we've got Arcane Command has a casting value of 5. If successfully cast, you get additional D3 relentless discipline points. Yep, D3.
Quite valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Second of all, we've got the weapons, which cast a value of 5. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly Bone Reapers unit with these weapon abilities that wholly within 24 of the caster, and it's visible to them. Until the start of your next hero phase, the weapon ability causes 2 hits to be scored on an unmodified roll of a 5+ instead of a 6, or a 4+ instead of a 6 if the unit charging, if the units are charged. So the Cavalos Death Riders, if they charge, they do it on a 4 instead of a 6. So which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You've got the Protection of Nagash, which casts on a 6. If cast, you get to roll a dice each time a wound or a mortal wound is allocated to the caster. On a 5+, that wound or mortal wound is negated. If any of the wounds or mortal wounds are allocated to the caster and they're not negated, then the caster is not slain, remove it from the battlefield after all the wounds or mortal wounds have been allocated. Then set it up anywhere on the battlefield more than 90. Whoa! So it takes some damage and they get to teleport. That's pretty cool. Is this our teleporting Nagash?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And it's very, very scary having a teleporting Nagash. Number 4 is the reinforced battle shield. So that goes off on a 6. If successfully cast, pick 1 Bone Reapers unit with the shields, or the shields or the battle shields that are wholly within 24 of the caster. Who has the battle shields, by the way?
Okay, so you got your Death Riders, your Mortic Guard, and the Immortus Guard, and Catacross.
Okay, so anyone who has a shield or what you just said. So I'm assuming this is on the War Scroll to say that, because it's obviously not a keyword, but I can find these types of shields. But basically, at the start of your next hero phase, you roll a dice each time you allocate a mortal wound to that unit, and on a 5+, it's negated. Two other ones, you have the Drain Vitality, which goes off on a 6 if cast. Pick one enemy unit within 18 of the caster until your next hero phase. Reroll unmodified hit rolls of 6 for the attacks made by the unit, and reroll unmodified save rolls of 6 for the attacks that they're being targeted against. So that's
Really
pretty cool.
good.
That's really cool, especially like if there's some abilities that trigger a save off a 6, so you might rebound mortal wounds on a 6, so you get them to re-roll that. And then finally the Mortal Contract, which goes off on a 7, so it's a little bit higher to cast than some of the other spells. However, if you pick one enemy unit within 18 of the caster that's visible, for the rest of the battle, roll a dice at the end of each phase during which attacks made by that unit afflict any damage against you, the Bone Reaper unit. On a 3+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, so you can't pick the same unit to be affected by the spell more than once per hero phase.
You don't need to.
All right, so you got 6 spells that you guys claim are pretty amazing. So
good.
Yeah.
The first one's pretty much, you can see why it's good, because we need discipline points, as many as we can get.
So you don't actually have to pick any because you're going to take Arcan, who knows all of them. Straight up. Do you see why I like Arcan? Because you just get to pick which ones he gets to cast. So good.
I really like Mortal Contract, and it can actually it stacks up with the carrion bird, as we were saying before.
Yeah.
So every end of every phase, if they're attacking you and doing a wound or killing a slain model, they're taking D3 back, mortal wounds back, and then maybe on a 3+, they're taking 1 from the bird.
So it's like 4 mortal wounds, on average 2 mortal wounds a phase. 2
to 3. Yeah, so that one's really good. Reinforced Battle Shield's really good on your Mortec Guard, as we said earlier. Mortal wounds really hurt our army, so anything with a shield, it's good, but giving that 5+ mortal wound save. Drain Vitality, that hitting on 6s, like Flesh Eater Courts, they love 6s.
Put that on a Terrorgeist. That'd be amazingly funny.
And even like Gotrek, on a 6, he does D6 mortal wounds. So stopping those exploding 6s from stuff. Like the other night when I played Slanesh, it worked really well on the Keeper of Secrets. All those 6s weren't exploding anymore. And then the
Bloodthirsters as well.
Yeah, and then the reroll save rolls of 6. When you've got Mortec Guard with Petrifix Elite and they've got -2 Ren, most things are saving on a 6 anyway. So if they're re-rolling that 6, nearly every wound that your guard are doing is just going straight through. And then obviously the protection of the gash, we saw why it was good. It's situational on all our other casters. It's extremely good on Nagash. And the weapons with the explosions on the 5+ instead of 6+ is really good.
4+ with spears and Death Riders. So good.
Yeah, exactly. You can make Mortec Guard, as we said, as I said earlier, they're the best. They're pretty much the best battle line in the game. If you cast battle shields on them, they're ignoring mortals on a 5+. You give them Empower Nadirite weapons, they're exploding on 5s to hit. If they're attacking something that's been drained vitality, they're re-rolling their 6s to save. It's just, I know these are a lot of things that you got to do, but they're not that hard to get off. Casting value of 5s and 6s.
Yeah, they're pretty low. I mean, your highest is 7, and I think about my Gloomspike kits, and they were baseline 7. So they're pretty generous. I mean, the average on 2d6 is a 7. So if you're hitting averages without even any pluses to cast, you should get off all of your spells.
Yeah.
If you take Umbral Spell Portal as well, I guess there's a bunch of ones where you can extend the range as well. So I can see what if we were to go down this route, what we've got the empowering of weapons, we've got Drain Vitality, we've got the battle shields, the reinforced battle shields, really, and then the mortal contract. So there's four spells that could be extending of the range if we went down the Umbral Spell Portal route.
Yep.
If we wanted that endless spell, just while we're talking spells.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just don't rate any endless spell that's not inside this army. So, yeah.
Well, we did talk earlier about the who was the dude that had the 3-inch spell range that was in combat?
1-inch range.
1-inch range. Vok motion.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I mean,
but we just said, but we're never gonna take him.
but someone might. I'm providing options. Like someone might really love that model and they want to really get the most out of it. So the Umbral Spell Portal could be a benefit. And while they have the Umbral Spell Portal, they may want to use it in other situations. But
just play him as a Soul Mason. I'm not going to complain.
Okay, but we've talked about it. You can go down that route. But we've acknowledged that most spells outside of your own endless spells are probably not the most viable options due to the price and due to a number of other reasons. But
Cool.
yes, worth talking about if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah.
Liam. All right.
Wow, targeting me. Wow, I feel so attacked.
If only you were the co-host of a certain show. So that's the spell law. That is a pretty cool spell law. I still think Hallowheart's better, but I'm biased. We've talked command traits. We've talked artifacts. Is there any malign sorcery artifacts that you think might be a nice complement to this army? Or do you think that because your book is so robust with so many choices that you could probably live with inside this book?
Maybe extra attacks or extra damage sort of ones for your Liege Cavalos. I don't think you'd bother with Ethereal Amulet because then you're not getting your +1 save from Petrifex.
Obviously, the Aether Quartz Brooch definitely is something that we don't want.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Are we going down a route like, Sword of Judgment? Do you see value in that? Do we see, we've got Ignax Scales, we've got the Mortal Wound Save. There's a couple of others that are around. I think your artifacts are pretty good. And you got a lot of choices.
Yeah, look, I with the problem is with the heroes that you can put these things on, then they're not really putting out a lot of attacks and stuff to benefit these extra damage or whatever weapons. So I don't know. But maybe you might be able to give them neg1 to hit, like what is it? The Griff Feather Charm, neg1 to hit.
Neg1 to hit, neg1 +1 to move.
Yeah, you might want to do that. I don't know.
All right, I'm hearing that that you probably self-contained in this book is what I'm hearing.
I think the book's got everything you need. Yeah, it's got everything you need.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I mean, Ignax Scales could be a nice one to include.
But you got a spell that ignores it on a 5-up, then you got a 6-up. So like you can just keep it eternally and then make him like a high damage output guy. So
unless you have a strategy where you're outside of spell range.
Yeah, if you play well.
Well, or you might be a fast army, and whoever knows. We're just throwing situations out.
Yeah.
It's not all about someone being a good or not good player. All right, you're so vicious. So we talked spell laws. We talked endless spells. That's very much about customization. We've kind of customized our force, right? Like I think we've been pretty robust here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the last parts that I just want to ask you guys is, how do I get the most out of this army? How do I, what's the advice that you'd give me as a new player, someone who's picking up this force, maybe someone who wants to do really well? Anything that you've learned through your games so far that you'd pass down to the folks?
I think this book is quite, because there's not a lot of units to pick from. I don't think you're really going to go wrong by buying more Tech Guard and maybe some Death Riders. You can always use any of the heroes. All the heroes are, except Vok Motion and probably the Soul Reaper, but the main heroes they're useful. Look, I just think maybe if you want to build an army, read the book and pick the faction, like the Legion or whatever you call them. Pick the Legion that you like the look of and think you might like to enjoy to play it, and then build your list around that. Like as was saying, if you're going to go crematoriums, you might then want to build harvesters around your Mortex, or if you want to go the charging retreat and charge one, then you're probably wanting to go more with your knights, the Death Riders. Sorry. So yeah, just I don't know. If you read the book, look at what you think you might want to build, and I don't think you're going to go wrong by buying Mortec Guard. Start with them and work from there. I think you're going to have them in every list.
I would say write a list. So like if you're like, let's say they strap the cash and you can't do like different types of lists for different types of legions, write a list that you think is going to do well in every single type of like sub legion, right? So then like all you have to do is just change the legion and you just change the flavor, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can write a list where it can be doing well in every single legion, which is actually doable. There is actually a list out there where it is, again, heavy Mortec Guard and maybe some Death Striders and stuff, but you probably won't go to the crawler route, if that makes sense. You would avoid the crawlers and stuff. If you like the models, go for it. But like, for example, crawlers don't get anything in Stalliarch Lords. Like they don't get run and charge. So you might be looking at more like, you just like write a list where you know that it's going to do well in every single legion. So when you play your games throughout the time, you don't have to be worrying about, oh, I need to buy this box because the meta's changed. But you can just go, oh, okay, cool, I can't compete if I just change my legion. So like a nice all-rounder list, that's like one thing I can do. And yeah, like I think that's one big tip I can give. And hobby-wise, paint and pass assembly, because the shields are annoying when you paint them on.
Yeah, good point. I know, Liam, you've played some games recently and you've tabled your opponents quite early on. Anything that you found, because one of the questions that myself and the chat have is, where do you think this army compares in the meta? You know, is it a definitely a top table type army? Is it a mid table kind of army? Is it very technical, or is it like, you just push it forward and then it wins? Where are you finding it right now?
Upper tier 2.
So when you say tier 2, like for the benefits of people who don't know what that means.
So for anyone who doesn't know, so pretty much we got a new one called S tier, which is called Slanesh tier, where it doesn't even have its own tier. It's just
so right now we are in November before any FAQ. So right now Slanesh is ruining the meta. You might be watching this 6 months from now, but right now Slanesh is ruining people's time.
Slanesh is ruining people's time so much that GW's even banned its own event at this time.
Cool. So Slanesh is running wild.
Yeah. So pretty much, then you got tier 1, which is an army where it's just pretty much like you can give it to a noob and they're going to smash your face in. So that's where you got your Doors of Cain, Hagno, all that kind of stuff. I reckon this Vec and stuff like in Skaven, right? So this army here is at upper tier 2, where it is super good, but a player who does really well, like who's a really good player, can make it a tier 1. But at tier 2, you can still compete. But the issue is that we just said is like it pretty much, you can, if you get played up against a good player and you're not like, if you're like a noob, they're going to play around you because of the movement game, if that makes sense. Like, because it has low body count, you're fighting over objectives and stuff, and you're pretty much like, for example, if there's like stuff like Scorched Earth or Better Part of Valor, you're not going to do well. Because
is that still relevant in that that high movement sub-allegiance?
Yes, so even the high movement one, because it's still like low unit count, you're not gonna, like, you could cross the table, but your opponent's probably still gonna outnumber you. Let's just say against like Doors of Cain, there's like 90 Witch Elves, they're gonna outnumber you no matter what. So there's stuff like that happens. So I say upper tier 2 because there is gonna be some bad matchups, and you're gonna lose some games due to you just don't have the bodies, and you really need the high damage output. But yeah, like I really say it's upper tier 2. Yeah, it's not broken. Which is a good thing. You're one FAQ away from your half your army being redundant, but you guys aren't in that situation. You're strong, and in the capable hands of an experienced, well practiced general, you guys can go 4-1 at a tournament, 5-0 at a tournament.
but it's not a push forward and auto win type army.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly say that, like, for example, Petrifix Elite is the Hagnar of this book. Me and the Mayor are both taking it at the current moment, but talk to us in 3 months' time. We're probably changed. Correct?
You have been sick of eating cheese for 3 months.
Yeah, I'll be sick of cheddar. So pretty much I would say like that, like if you want to play this army on easy mode for the rest of your for the whole time, just pick that, go for gold. But if you want to show off that you know how to play this game and do some skills, look at the other legions, because there are some really good stuff in there and there's some secret tech there that is there to be found.
Yeah, and if you're catching the end of the show and you didn't see the start, we believe currently there's 4 out of the 6 that we think are definitely viable competitive options. They're all playable, but we think probably there's 4 out of the 6 that are viable and competitive in the current meta as we see it.
But yeah, like I just think it's good. The whole book, I like it, and also the models are awesome. So if you're starting out, just make sure you like the models because you're going to be painting a lot of Mortec Guard.
Yeah.
The straight up. And I can say this, they're actually been the most refreshing models that I've painted. And I've painted a lot of models. So. And
before I go to the Mayor, you've used a bit of contrast paint on your guys. They've turned up well.
I am doing this weird contrasting where I'm using Mechanicus Grey Spray and Black Templar and Grey. And they are working a treat, because for anyone who wants to, like, let's just be honest, like if you're listening to this and you want to do Black Bone, just do this: spray Mechanicus Grey, get the contrast medium, and then the Black Templar contrast, do a mix. Not really 50-50, a little bit stronger black, but not too strong. And then you just put it over your model and then do a dry brush of Mechanicus Grey over again for like a little light highlight. And you got yourself a really nice dark bone straight out of the bat. And then all the other colors that you paint around it will just pop like like if anyone who wants to see what I'm doing, it's on my Twitter at @shadowhammer_. You see what I'm doing there, and it's working.
It's in the show description. You've got both the Mayor and Liam's Twitter handle. So, Mayor, any other advice you would give to the young, the poor, the hungry, who are waiting to do well? Obviously, you're well practiced leading into the Australian Masters when it comes to a whole new faction.
Look, I think the best way to be successful at any army is just to play it a lot and practice it a lot, and just build your own list. Don't look. People do it. I hate it. Don't go on the internet, find a net list, and play it. Play your own list. Build your own style. Play to what you like, and then just keep games. I know it's hard if you're in a community that doesn't play a lot, but if you can just get one game a week or one game a fortnight, you'll work your list out so much better. Things will just happen. Come games, you'll know how everything works. It's easy to say this is average, but until you play games with stuff, it's not until then that you actually work stuff out. I just always recommend do your own thing, build your own list, do what you like, and then just practice. I think you'll find all the good players in the scene play a lot of practice games. They're not just picking up an army and playing it once before a tournament and winning with it. They're practiced. Well, look, some people can do that, but they've probably played a lot of games of other armies that are similar, or they've been playing the game a long time. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing in this game is just plenty of practice.
Like for example, right, my Mortis Guard, some people I've seen on Facebook aren't rating them, being like they're not worth it, but I really like the models, and since I now read the War Scroll and understand how they to be used, I find them super viable in my list. Like just as the Mayor said, if you just have practice games and then you're picking the models that you want to run, you'll enjoy the army a lot more, and also you'll understand it way better than your opponent or even other Bone Reaper players.
Yeah, I think, you guys have a significant advantage that almost nobody has played against the Bone Reapers. People don't have a strategy yet. There are so many different ways to play the Bone Reapers that you guys definitely have a competitive advantage. Obviously, you don't want to have I gotcha moments, but definitely when I look at an army, there's not a lot of net listing yet. It's not like, how do I take this down? How do I handle it? Even an Arcan or a Nagash acts very differently in the Bone Reapers versus a Legions of Nagash. So I'm looking forward to seeing the development of this meta and what units really stand out as the strong ones and the most viable ones. And hopefully we all just don't go down the route of one particular sub-allegiance. We don't have the Hagnar of Bone Reapers.
We do.
But no, I'm hoping that we take up the challenge and, we're not all net listing, but have fun with your models. They're not an auto win. So I think we've talked a lot. There's been a lot of discussion. I said to my wife today, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go as long as Cities of Sigmar. It actually has. It's 10 minutes shy, but we did kind of speed up the Cities of Sigmar book. If people want to talk more about Bone Reapers with you guys, where can they find you, Mr. Mayor, when you're not cutting ribbons, kissing babies, and visiting old people in the homes? Where can they find you, Mayor?
On Facebook under Mathew Tyrrell, and then on Twitter. I'm always online most of the time. I even got a message during the week from, is it Chris Hallett? Do you know him?
Yep, Chris Hallett from the Sydney crew. Yep.
Yeah, he just messaged me out of the blue and said, look, thinking about playing Death, and I've heard you're a good Death player, and we just started swapping story. He wanted some advice on building some lists and where to go. And so, yeah, I'm always keen to chat to anyone that wants to talk about lists or any ideas. Just send me a message.
That's a really good point as well. Like, you've got the Bone Reapers Facebook group, you've got a Death Facebook group, you've got Twitter. Share your insights and your, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And I think as a community, you'll all probably grow. So, share that wisdom, and you guys can overtake Slaanesh, and no longer do we need to ban them as according to the hashtag. Liam, where can they find you?
Twitter at Shadowhammer_, Facebook, and then you can catch me at this show with this guy that I do a show with called Down Under Sigmar. He's not a bad guy. He's pretty good. He's like my old married partner, which is great. And
I've moved the mouse over mute, by the way, so I'm just ready to pull the trigger.
But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm more than happy to look at lists and talk about strategies and stuff. I've done it already for a few people. And I'm always happy to talk Warhammer, as both you two know. I love talking about it. So yeah, don't be shy, and you can hit me up.
Perfect. And thanks for everyone who have stayed on. We've had some really cool people in the chat discussing, and, we've had a lot of people watching this video. I'm sure they'll watch on replay. Thank you very much. If you're not subscribed to the channel, appreciate if you hit a subscribe, you share it to your friends, your family, your loved ones, put it on your LinkedIn resume, whatever it might be. The support is always appreciated. And boys, this was a really good discussion. I haven't played against this army yet, but I'm really looking forward to being tabled by Liam at least a couple of times before I learn my lesson. It's always a pleasure. Don't do that to me. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut off. Thanks very much again, and we'll be back. Soon. Roll more sixes. That's right. I was meant to say the slogan. Roll more sixes. All right.
Yeah, it helps.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.